Magandang hapon po sa ating lahat, no? Naimbaga malam sa ating mga teachers na nanonood ngayon sa Ilocos Region. Marina hapon, maupay nga kulog. Maayong hapon, good afternoon po sa inyong lahat. Ako po si Joel Yamado mula po sa Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Service, and welcome po sa ating learning session on the conduct and facilitation of psychosocial support activities for grade 7 to 12 para sa pagpisikal na pagbabalik eskwela ngayong school year 2022-2023. So yan po, no, mga ma'ams and sirs, kung kasama po namin kayo ngayong hapon ito, pwede po bang makahingi kami, no, ng virtual hearts, no, mula po sa inyo. So ito pong ating session ngayong hapong ito ay parte ng iba't ibang programa ng Department of Education para masigurado natin ang kaigihan ng mental health at psychosocial support ng ating mga mag-aaral. Kaya maraming salamat po sa lahat ng mga tumututok ngayon, no, sa ating live stream. At of course, no, huwag niyo pong kakalimutan na i-like and share ito para marami pang kaguruan at kawani ng paaralan ang maabot ng ating orientation at matuto ngayong hapon. Ayan, bago po tayo magsimula, ayan, sasamahan po tayo, no, ng ating mga partners mula po sa Magis Creative Spaces para po share sa atin ang ating psychosocial support activities ngayong hapon ito. Ayan, kung ready na po ang lahat, pwede po ba ako makahingi, no, ng like or thumbs up sa inyo mga moms and sirs? Ayan naman, oh, maraming salamat po. Alam ko pong excited na tayong lahat sa pagbubukas eskwela. Okay, so ayan po, ano ngayong hapong ito, katulad nga po ng nasabi ko kanina, may mga inibitahan tayong mga eksperto sa larangan ng psikolohiya, psychosocial at disaster risk reduction and management upang bigyan tayo ng malinaw na pag-intindi paano ba natin magagawa ang gampaning ito. Ang ating objective para sa gawain ito ay for teaching personnel to learn how to conduct psychosocial support activities for learners in line with the return to in-person learning modality. Ano nga ba ang psychosocial support na ating sinasabi? Paano nga ba ito ginagawa o gagawin sa ating physical na klase? Paano ba tayo makagagawa ng sarili nating mga psychosocial support activities para mas maangkla natin ito sa pangangailangan at konteksto ng ating klase? Yan. Ito po ay ating aalamin sa tulong ng ating mga kasama mula sa Magis Creative Spaces Incorporated. So ang Magis Creative Spaces po ay isang center for healing and learning through the expressive arts. So kasama na po natin sila since last year. Ayan, maliban po sa Magis Creative Spaces Incorporated, sasamahan din tayo ng ating mga kaibigan mula sa Department of Education, Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Service o DRRMS. Ayan po, bago po tayo magsimula sa ating talakayan ngayong hapon, maaari niyo po bang kunin ang inyong kopya ng handouts para sa ating learning session on the conduct of facilitation of psychosocial support activities. Kung wala po kayong kopya, maaari niyo po itong i-download sa link na ito. Ayan po, na makikita niyo po sa inyong screen at ito rin po ay makikita niyo sa ating comment section. So habang nakikinig po sa ating diskusyon, maaari niyo pong basahin ang handouts o kaya magsulat ng sarili niyong mga naiisip. No? Or kung may mga tanong rin po kayo, please feel free to write them down dahil meron po tayong open forum maya-maya. So ano nga po ba ang pag-uusapan natin ngayong hapong ito? So ayan po, nandyan po ang resilience in education. So ano nga po ba ang sinasabi nating resilience, no? Pagdating po sa basic education? Ano po ba ang psychosocial support and its 7 S's? Ayan, magkakaroon din po tayo ng demonstration of psychosocial support activities, ayan, smart play table, at of course, magkakaroon po tayo ng open forum and ang ating pong quick psychosocial evaluation guide. Diba? So ayan, alam ko pong ready na tayo ngayong hapong ito ng mga moms and sirs. Kaya ayan, simulan na po natin ang ating discussion tungkol sa resilience and education, a rationale of psychosocial support in disasters and or emergencies. Upang bigyang linaw ang usapin ng resilience o katatagan, kinakailangan nating magbigay ng psychosocial support tuwing panahon ng salanta o kundi naman po may mga di inaasahang pangyayari. Kasama po natin ngayon si Ms. Leandra Yu or si Ms. Lily, ang Project Development Officer 2 mula sa DRRMS at ang lead ng Mental Health and Psychosocial Support Program. Sa bahagi pong ito, maaari niyong puntahan ang page 2 ng inyong handout upang sundin ang diskusyon. Ms. Lily, good afternoon.
Magandang hapon sa inyong lahat na nanonood. Ako po si Lily mula sa DRRMS at handog ko sa inyo ngayong araw ang discussion tungkol sa resilience in children, the rationale of psychosocial support in disasters and/or emergencies. For today, in this part of the discussion, we have 3 points. First, we will talk about the impact of disasters on mental health. Second, we will talk about training continuity through mental health and psychosocial support. And last, we will talk about resilience. So, unahin na natin, simulan na natin ang usapan tungkol sa impact of disaster on mental health. Pero bago yun, kailangan muna nating maintindihan ano nga ba ang disaster o sakuna. So kabuuang definition ng sakuna or disaster, may 3 siyang bahagi. Una-una, the disaster pertains to a serious disruption of the functioning of a community or a society. So may gulo or may pagkakaiba na nangyayari. Pero hindi lang yon because the serious disruption involves widespread, malawakang human, material, economic, or environmental losses and impact. And when we say losses, ibig sabihin, merong kawalan. Kawalan ng tao, material, ekonomiko, or related sa ating environment. Ito rin, it also exceeds the ability of the affected community or society to cope using its own resources. Ibig sabihin, sa kanilang mayroon or sa kanilang mga resources ngayon, hindi na nila kinakaya na malampasan pa yung karanasan ng disaster. It exceeds their ability to cope. And the reason why we need to start with a discussion on disaster is because we are currently in that context. Kaya nga tayo gumagawa ng psychosocial support, lalong-lalo na sa pagbabalik in-person classes or pagbabalik eskwela. Kasi manggagaling sa isang karanasan ng disaster, sakuna, or ng COVID-19 pandemic ang ating mga learners at hindi lang mga learners, pati na rin kayong mga personnel. So it's important to understand the concept of a disaster. We know that disasters also have impacts to education. Siguro sa inyo, sa mga nanonood ngayon, nakaranas na nito. We know that disasters impact our education through the damaged school buildings, the suspension of our classes, and just recently, the lockdowns due to the pandemic. And apart from the impact to education, on a very individual level, there are several reactions that we have as well. First is a reaction of shock. Yung parang nagulat dun sa pagkalaki noong sakuna or nung karanasan noong sakuna. At maliban doon, mayroong ding reactions of grief. And when we talk about grief here, we're not simply talking about grief about a lost loved one, but we are also talking about grief over a lost lifestyle or a lost way of life. Pwede rin itong grief over the materials or kagamitan na nawala dahil sa isang sakuna. So hindi lang siya sa tao, kundi pati na rin sa karanasan at pati na rin sa mga bagay. There are also reactions of avoidance or withdrawal. Kung dati-rati, normal siguro sa isang tao na makipaghalubilo, makipagkwentuhan, pero matapos nung isang karanasan na sakuna, bigla siyang tumahimik, hindi na siya kumikibo, hindi na siya namamansin ng iba, hindi na siya nakikipagkaibigan. Ito yung mga tinatawag nating avoidance and withdrawal reactions. Apart from that, there are also feelings of loss of place. And this is very common among displaced survivors, no? Yung bigla kang na-uproot, bigla kang nawala sa inyong mga bahay or sa inyong mga tirahan, no? And because of that, you might experience the feelings of loss of place. And there are also feelings of distress apart from your experience of a disaster, feelings of distress due to other consequences of the crisis situation. So halimbawa, nung pandemya, nawala ka ng trabaho. Yung pagkawala mo ng trabaho, consequence yun noong nangyaring sakuna or nangyaring disaster. So maliban sa na-stress ka na, no, dahil may nangyaring sakuna, nadagdagan pa yun, no, dahil sa karanasan mo ng pagkawala ng trabaho. So yun yung feelings of distress. And more specifically, no, in the COVID-19 pandemic context, these are common reactions that we actually saw in children based on research. There is withdrawal due to prolonged isolation. So the moment na nagkaroon tayo ng lockdown, di ba? Whereas dati, nakakapagkita pa tayo ng ating mga kaibigan, no, ng ating mga guro, biglang nawala yun, no? Nawala yung parating na nakikita mo yung mga kaibigan mo, nakikita mo yung mga guro mo. At dahil sa tagal noong lockdown, sa tagal ng quarantine, sa tagal nung karanasan natin ng pandemya, no, nagkakaroon na reactions of withdrawal, no? Maliban doon, meron ding reactions of increase in aggression. For example, no, for children who are not able to express their feelings or their emotions through words, they sometimes come out in actions, and in this case, sometimes in behaviors of aggression. There are also experiences of violence and neglect among children, no? And the reason why this is important to discuss right now is because as teachers, when we welcome back our learners in in-person classes, we have to remember each of one of them will have a different context. Each one of them will carry a different experience. No? Ang bawat isa ay may dalang karanasan, no? Unique, kakaibang karanasan nila ng pandemya. Maaring yung iba, excited, pumasok, no? At makita si teacher, at makita mga kaibigan. Pero maaari din may mga iba na may pangamba na pumasok. Ayaw pumasok dahil siguro nakalimutan na nilang paano makipagkaibigan, no? Or paano ba kumausap ng taong hindi nila kilala. There might even be some, no, who are coming back to school carrying with them an experience of violence and neglect. And the reason why we need to talk about it is when we face them, we have to remember these things and remember that we have to meet them where they are. Okay? And given that we understand that there are these reactions to disasters, no, we also have to remember that we have power in supporting our learners or the children, no, in their experience of a disaster. And our power is actually in our role in education. We have to remember that education is one of the most important functions in a community. Di ba? Kahit saan na may bata, may eskwelahan. Kahit saan na may bata, may edukasyon, no? So gamitin natin ng edukasyon upang maabot ang ating mga bata, ang ating mga learners, no? At bigyan silang suporta. And this is why we have to advocate for learning continuity. Learning continuity, specifically in this context, no, through mental health and psychosocial support. And the reason why we must do this is because when we have an experience of a disaster, temporarily we are put out of balance. Diba? Nawawala tayo sa kasanayan natin, nawawala tayo sa alam nating normal dahil may nangyari sa ating sakuna. At kapag nangyayari yon, no, when education steps in, we bring a sense of normalcy back. We restore a sense of normalcy. And we can strengthen this specifically through mental health and psychosocial support activities, no, or programs. Because psychosocial support, no, have two functions. First of all, it is preventive. It is preventive because it decreases the risk of developing mental health problems. Alam na natin na kapag meron kang karanasan ng sakuna, may dala-dala kang reaksyon no, ng stress or distress. Sometimes, for other people, it may be, the reactions may actually be positive. No? Sometimes they have a renewed sense of purpose in life, no, or a renewed sense of love for their families. No? But in cases wherein there are experiences of distress, no, psychosocial support is one of the ways in which we can reach out to the survivors, no, or to the learners, no, and be able to decrease their risk of developing mental health problems. Kasi halimbawa, no, ang isang tao na may karanasan ng sakuna at may hindi magandang nararamdaman at iniwan lang natin siyang ganon, no, maaaring lumala itong karamdamang ito sa isang mental health condition na, no? Kaya ang psychosocial support, andyan siya, pumapasok siya, no, upang bawasan yung risk, no, na lumala pa sa ganong sitwasyon. Later on, no, one of our research persons will elaborate on psychosocial support. Okay? The second function of psychosocial support is that it is curative. It is curative because it helps us overcome and deal with the psychosocial problems that arise from the shock and the effects of a crisis. So earlier, di ba, we gave an example na halimbawa na walang ka ng trabaho dahil sa pandemya and then you feel the stress dahil dun sa pagkawala ng trabaho, no? Psychosocial support, when it comes in that situation, becomes curative because it helps us understand what we are going through and therefore helping us overcome and deal with the situation at hand. So psychosocial support has two functions in that sense. And when these two functions come together, preventive and curative, they actually support, no, overall, the building or the shaping of one's resilience o yung katatagan ng isang tao. Because all of us have the capability to get through adverse experiences, diba? Whether it's a small challenge or a big one, natural sa ating mga tao na malampasan iyon. Pero may mga panahon na sa grabe nung nangyari, sa grabe nung hamon na nakaharap sa atin, minsan nahihirapan tayong makita sa sarili natin na kaya pala natin. No? That's why there is what we call the psychosocial support. No? Support po siya sa atin upang matandaan natin yung katatagan natin bilang mga tao. And this is where the discussion, no, on resilience comes in. So when we say resilience or katatagan, no, ang ibig sabihin nito, the definition is actually an individual's capacity to face, overcome, and be strengthened and transformed by life's adversity. So hindi lang siya yung simple, nalampasan ko yung isang pagsubok, no? Isa yun, isang manifestation yung resilience, no? Pero maliban doon, hindi lang sa nalampasan mo siya, pero pagkatapos nung karanasan ng hamon na yun, no, parang lumabas kang mas matatag, mas malakas, no? Mas may malalim na pag-unawa sa sarili mo. You are transformed by that experience of a challenge. That's resilience. And when we say resilience, no, there are three sources of resilience specifically for children. Mayroon tayong teorya na sinusundan, no, dito sa kagawaran. Una, the first source of resilience is external supports. Because these are still children, they're still discovering themselves as they navigate through the world. So naturally, the first thing they look towards, ano yung mga nandyan sa harap ko na pwede kong gamitin to support me and be able to build my resilience. Second source of resilience is the internal and personal strengths of the individual. And third is the social and interpersonal skills. These three are actually translated into what we call the language of resilience. Yung tatlong yun, no, tinatranslate natin siya no, sa pamamaraan ng pananalita. Dahil sa pamamaraan ng pananalita, pag sinasabi natin ito, no, pinaniniwalaan natin ito. Kaya, no, yung ating external support, it's translated to I have. Yung ating personal strengths, it is translated into I am. And for the interpersonal and social skills, it's translated into I can. Because we want our learners, our resilient learners, at the end of the day, to be able to say, I have, I am, and I can. Pero anong ibig sabihin nun? Tara, talakayan natin. Una, yung I have. No? I have pertains to the external support and resources that promote resilience. These may pertain to trusting relationships. So, meron kang pamilya, no? Pero sa pamilya mo ba, meron ka bang nakakausap? Do you have trusting relationships? It can also pertain to, an example is role models. Do our children have good role models to look up to? No? Kayo, mga teachers, kayo ang kanila mga role model. Isa pa sa mga halimbawa, no, is access to education, health, welfare, and security services. That's why we say that education, no, helps shape resilience. These are all external supports, no, for our children, or in this case, our learners, no, to be able to promote resilience. We want them to be able to say, I have trusting relationships, I have good role models, and I have access to education, health, and welfare. Up next is the language of I am. So I am pertains to the child's internal personal strengths or their feelings, attitudes, and beliefs within themselves. So for example, no, nasasabi kaya ng bata na isa siyang tao na minamahal ng iba? No, masasabi kaya ng isang bata na siya mismo ay may mga kakayahan? We want our learners to be able to look, no, into their personal strengths and their beliefs within themselves. Can they believe that they are lovable? No? Can they say that they are respectful of themselves? Can they say that they are autonomous and they are responsible? So we want them to be able to own the language of resilience, own their strength by saying, I am. And last is I can. And I can pertains to the child's social and interpersonal skills. So kapag naintindihan na ng bata, no, yung kanyang mga kakayahan, no, likas na kakayahan sa kanyang sarili, nakikita na niya ang mundo sa labas niya. And this pertains to, kaya social and interpersonal skills ang tinitingnan natin dito. So halimbawa, can the child say, I can communicate? I can use my skills to communicate and make friends. Can the child say, I can problem solve? When there's a challenge put in her face, will they be able to get through it? No, using the strengths that they have, using the external resources that they have. Can they be able to manage their feelings? Can they say that I can manage my feelings? No, through their understanding of their own capabilities and through their perception of what they have or the resources they have that support them. Okay? So yun yung I have, I am, and I can. And these three sources of resilience, no, itong lengguwahe ng katatagan, actually, nakikita din natin siya sa psychosocial support activity pack na makukuha ninyo maya-maya lang or later on, no? The language of I have, the language of I am, and the language of I can, they are all embedded in our activities, in our instructions, and even in our synthesis, no? In the psychosocial support activity pack. So habang ginagawa po natin yung mga activities, no, innately, dinedevelop natin yung consciousness nila sa kanilang mga external resources. What do they have? We develop their consciousness on who they are. I am. what are their strengths, and we develop their consciousness into what they can do. No, I can. Lahat yun, no, this language of resilience is embedded in our psychosocial support activity pack. So let's have a recap of what we have just discussed. We began with the discussion on disasters because this is the context in which we are operating under. And once we have understood the meaning of disasters, we also understand ano yung mga impact niya, not only to the education sector but also to individuals as well. And we bridge those two together to understand how we can advocate for learning continuity and why we should advocate for learning continuity, diba? And overall, it is for us to be able to develop the resilience of the child, for them to have the capacities to overcome life's adversities. And this discussion, kaya tayo nagsimula sa talakayang ito dahil ito yung gusto natin maging lente ninyo sa pag-uunawa ng mga susunod pang mga talakayan ngayong araw. So later on, when we learn about well-being and psychosocial support and the activities, we hope that you have it in you, to see it in this lens. To see it in the lens of resilience and to see it in the lens of learning continuity. Uulitin ko, yung lengguwahe ng katatagan. At the end of the day, we want our learners to be able to say, I have, I am, and I can. Tandaan po natin yan sa mga susunod pang mga talakayan. Thank you.
Maraming salamat. Maraming salamat, Ms. Lily, sa napaka-comprehensive na talakayan tungkol sa katatagan or resilience. So ayan po, mga ma'ams and sirs, huwag po natin kakalimutan na turo sa ating mga learners yung I have, I can, and I am. So ayan po, maraming salamat po ulit, Ms. Lily. And kung meron po kayong mga katanungan, ma'ams and sirs, tungkol sa discussion ni Ms. Lily, wag tayong mahihimi na i-post ito or i-chat natin ito sa ating comment section. Ayan, so ayan po susunod po na bahagi ng ating diskusyon. Gagamitin natin yung mga natutunan natin sa discussion ng resilience bilang lente sa pag-iintindi ng well-being at psychosocial support. Kaya naman po, hindi ko na po papatagalin pa, ating bigyan ng warm virtual welcome si Ms. Mariel, isang psychologist mula sa Magis Creative Spaces. Siya ay may malalim ng karanasan sa psychological first aid training and psychosocial interventions. Ngayong hapon, tatalakayin niya ang mental health and psychosocial support, well-being at ang konsepto ng psychological first aid. Makikita ang nilalaman ng talakayang ito sa pages 3 and 4 ng inyong handouts. Magandang hapon po, Ms. Mariel.
Magandang araw po sa inyong lahat. Today, our presentation will focus on psychosocial support, an overview of that and how it differs from psychological first aid. But I would also like to introduce a few terms and concepts just so we can understand this better. All right, so let's get to it. Okay, so we have to start with well-being. Okay, and this can be defined simply as a state of health, happiness, and prosperity. This is about how we feel about ourselves and our current situation right now. So this is related to quality of life, okay, and how we see ourselves, right, our current state. Okay, and because it involves our experiences and how we respond to those experiences, that basically means we have some control over our own well-being. Okay, all right. And for the next slide, gusto ko lang pong ibahagi sa inyo the well-being flower. Okay, so there are so many images out there. So I decided to go with this one, and I wanted to share this for two reasons. First, being that well-being is a very broad concept, okay, and it involves different types of well-being, as shown here. Okay, they are all related and connected with each other. They are all important, and one is not better than the other. We all need this in order to thrive, okay, and really feel good about ourselves. Okay. The second point is that when we design our psychosocial support interventions, programs, and activities, we can consider the different types of well-being in the design and planning of these things. Okay. Because when it comes to disasters, crises on an individual or much wider level, such as this pandemic, it makes sense that medyo kulang po yung levels of well-being po natin, right? We're missing a few things, or some things are just not enough. Okay? So let's take a look at these types, and as we go through each part, we can also look at this in the context of our own experiences, living with the pandemic. Okay? Now the first one is biological well-being. Basically means our physical needs. Okay. So during this time, did you have enough of this, enough food, enough water? Was there a shortage of this? One intervention was yung pagdidistribute ng ayuda. Were you able to get that? Right. Other responses, when the lockdown started, is that people started panic buying, right, for these resources. Okay. So think about it. Were you able to provide for your family? Did you have enough of this? Yeah. Okay. So the next one, that would be material well-being. Very similar to biological well-being, right? So it's having that shelter, having the clothing to protect ourselves. It's having the proper structures in the community. Okay. During the pandemic, there was a shortage, right, of hospital rooms, okay, hospital beds, respirators, new hospitals had to be built, quarantine facilities had to be built as well, right? And when you were in need of that, did you have access to this? Okay. And when that wasn't available to you, what was an alternative, right? Or how did you manage having a lack of this? Okay. Next one is social well-being. It's just having that sense of connection, being in relation with others. During the pandemic, it must have been very difficult for some of us, especially those of us who liked going outside. We suddenly had to stay at home, bawal lumabas, right? So how did we deal with that? How did we manage to stay connected with our family, with our friends? Some of us who were living apart from the family, naka-isolate yung iba, and that must have been very difficult, right? What was done in spite of that? How are you able to maintain your connections, keep in touch with each other? How are you still able to participate in your own social groups, right? So I think marami na po tayong mga GC sa Viber, Messenger, and any other social media apps, right? And most of all, when it comes to especially the children, our students, right? How did we give them that sense of connection, that sense of relationship, that sense of belonging in the midst of this pandemic? right? They were away from their classmates. That must have been so difficult. What, what were the things we did for them? Yeah. Okay. Next one is spiritual well-being. It's having that sense, having that connection to our own spirituality and having the opportunity to practice our own religious beliefs and traditions. And in the midst, again, of this pandemic, how were we able to do that? Mass gatherings weren't allowed. Again, we had to stay at home. So, how are we able to get in touch with that, with our religion or spirituality? Okay, another challenge is finding sense of purpose, because maybe for some of us, we may have lost that sense of purpose and meaning in the past 2.5 years. Right? So, what were the things we did to restore or to rediscover that? Okay, because that's important too. Okay, and as we move on to cultural well-being, it's quite similar, right? Quite similar to our spiritual well-being as it involves tradition and practices. One thing I noticed over the pandemic is this experience of, prolonged grief. So we've had to experience that kind of loss. And when it came to Filipino tradition, right, we would have rituals, right, before the funeral. So we'd have the wake, right, and we would celebrate the life of our lost loved one. Yeah. But because of the circumstances now, we're not really able to practice that. Yeah. And that must have been really difficult for some of us. Right. So in spite of having to stay at home and take note of all the safety protocols, how are we still able to keep in touch, right, with our cultural identity as Filipinos? Okay, and then we move on to our mental well-being. This became a very big thing, again, because of the pandemic. Right? As soon as the lockdown hit, the first one, how are we able to adjust, right, and to adapt to these sudden changes? Right? When schools had to stop and students couldn't be there anymore, and we all had to switch, right, to online teaching. How did you manage that? How did you manage that stress, right? And how did our students, can you imagine, how did our children adapt to this, right? And then, fast forward to today, where another change is happening and we're going back to face classes. That's another, period of change and adjustment for the teachers and the students as well, right? So what kind of support can we give, right? Not only to our teachers, but especially to the students, as we adjust again. Yes, that's something to consider. Okay, so when it comes to education, so going back here, education, knowledge, and skills, were we given, did we have access to the right and appropriate information regarding COVID-19, right? Was that readily available for us? Right, and by skills, we can refer to stress management. How are we able to regulate ourselves in such a stressful period of time, right? And how are we able to support others, right, while doing this? And the last one, similar to mental well-being, is our emotional well-being. So during this whole time, again, how are we able to regulate our own emotions? Okay, were we given the knowledge and skills to recognize what we're going through, and also, again, to support like our family members and our friends who are struggling? Did we allow ourselves the space and time to feel this whole range of emotions? Okay, yeah, from fear, anger, frustration, all the uncomfortable feelings, up to even the more positive ones, right? Like love, self-esteem, empathy, compassion for self and others. Right? Were we able to also make space for the good feelings? Yeah, just some things to think about, right? And again, as we look at this whole well-being flower, we can also consider our students, right, and what they must be uh, going through, right, this whole time. Okay, so I do have a question. I'm really curious right now. Looking at the 7 of these, which type do you have enough of? Like, which is, which one is okay for you right now? Yeah. And on the opposite side of that, which type of well-being do you need to nurture more? What do you need more of at this time? Okay, so you can take a moment, and if you want, you may share this in the comment section. Just to see where you're at, and to see also the others participating as well. So if you noticed, outside the well-being flower are 3 more concepts. Okay, and these are requirements. Okay, things that we need, the things that our students need in order to thrive, in order to access the other types of well-being. Okay, by participation, yes, it means personal agency. How involved in the healing are we allowing, our students and others to be at? Wow, does that sound right? Okay, basically it's the transfer of skills. Okay, because we don't want the people that we're helping to be dependent on us all the time, forever and ever. Okay, we want to make sure that we pass on skills so that they feel confident enough that they can do something for themselves, right? And it is as simple as teaching our children, okay, our students, how to regulate their emotions. Okay, sure, they need our help first, but then, with practice, it's something they can do on their own. Okay, when it comes to development, are we giving the space and time for our students to experience the change? Okay, to learn, to adapt, just give them that time and space, to adjust. Okay, to actually go through that development. We don't need to rush them. Okay, so it's sometimes it means that we have to slow down or meet them where they are at whatever level they're at right now. Are we able to meet them where they need us to be? Okay, and the last one, I could be biased, but I find this very, very important, is that sense of safety. Okay, security from fear and harm. Okay, because really, without that sense of safety, other types of well-being won't really follow. Okay, sa utak po natin, there's one part that's focused on danger. Okay, it's always looking out for danger. Am I safe? Am I safe? Am I safe? Okay, so as soon as the child feels unsafe, that part of the brain will just keep going. Okay, and when that part of the brain keeps going and keeps saying, you're not safe, you need to protect yourself, the child will go into survival mode. Okay, and as we know, when we are in survival mode, we don't really think about other things. Okay, problem solving shuts down. Okay, looking for social connections, that also shuts down. Okay, we are on survival mode. Okay, so as soon as we are able to establish safety, okay, for our students, there's a good chance that the other types of well-being will follow. Okay, and what do I mean by safety? This can mean physical safety, right? So this is how you design your classrooms, right? To make them feel safe, to make it look nice and inviting and fun, right? And it can also mean how we present ourselves to our students, right? From the tone of voice, right, to facial expressions, to body language. You know, we can ask ourselves, can I be that safe person for my student? Or am I giving off this image of fear and harm for them? Okay, so something to think about. So again, just to note, in emergency situations, whatever that may be on an individual or larger scale, the presence of a stable adult caregiver can aid children's feelings of well-being. Okay, just having that support already make them feel a bit more supported. Okay, the risk here, or the concern here, is that caregivers are also affected by the emergencies. Okay, and because we are affected by those emergencies, our ability to be that safe, stable, and nurturing individual might not be there. Okay, so there's no shame in that. It happens. Okay, so that is why when we think of interventions, okay, psychosocial interventions, we also want to include caregivers. Okay, by caregivers, that includes the family, and it also includes you guys, the adults who will be interacting with the children. Okay, we want to support you guys so that you in turn will be able to support children, okay, and provide them with a sense of that safety, stability, and normalcy that they so very much need. Okay, so there you go. We finally we finally reached the slide, psychosocial support. Okay, so yes, when we look at it, that's basically it. These are the actions, activities, and interventions that meet psychological and social needs of individuals, families, communities. Okay, we think of well-being. We consider well-being in here as well. Okay, psychosocial support comes in during times of crisis. Okay, to prevent normal distress from becoming something much more severe. Okay, so we'd like to remind everyone here that how we have been reacting, okay, to the ongoing crisis that is the pandemic, it is absolutely normal. Okay, no matter how weird our stress responses are, it is absolutely normal. Okay. Now, again, the role of psychosocial support is just to make sure we are in stress, that we are able to regulate that and keep that from, prolonging and eventually becoming something much more severe. Okay. So there you go. There's another goal of psychosocial support. We want to reduce the risk of vulnerability while strengthening protective factors. So again, it is providing that sense of safety, sense of support, not just for us, but also for the children. Okay. Here's a list of some psychosocial support activities. As we look through them, you may have experienced some of them already, or maybe a few, or maybe not yet. Actually, maybe you have. Okay, because the first one, psychoeducation and awareness raising, it's something like this right now. Okay. Next would be, again, skill building, life and vocational skills. Second, recreational and creative activities, right? So this is going to be related to what we'll be doing later today. Okay, tapping into that creativity and using it in ways that can also heal. Okay, not just express, but also heal, right? We also have sports, physical activities, getting movement in our system, restoring family links. This is more related to displaced families like refugees, right? Or yeah, people who have been separated maybe during a disaster. Okay, creating child-friendly spaces, right? Because children need that space to play and to just be, right? To just be themselves. Okay, having community committee. So again, it's having the community involved, having that participation. Okay, it's giving that sense of agency. Okay, supporting cultural and traditional rituals. See that? See how these are aligning with the different types of well-being that we discussed earlier. Okay. Again, having support and self-help groups. Okay. So it's in a way the transfer of skills. Okay. Because when we are able to support, ourselves, we find, we're able to find ways to do it for others as well. Okay. And the last one here is psychological first aid. And there's a lot more. So this is just a short list. Okay, but I would like to focus a little bit more on psychological first aid. Okay, because sometimes psychosocial support used interchangeably with psychological first aid, but there's actually a difference there. Okay, and the first difference is that psychological first aid is under psychosocial support. So psychological first aid, or PFA, is a type of psychosocial support. So maybe some of us are familiar with PFA. Okay, so holla, yeah, in the comment section if you have, if you know about this or if you've had training. Okay, it's another good skill to have. Okay, to define it, psychological first aid, or PFA, it's really what it is here: humane, supportive, and practical help for those who have experienced an extremely distressing event. So again, PFA comes in during times of crisis and distress. Okay. And let's go to the next. There you go. So here's what PFA is. So yes, the comfort is there. The emotional support is there. Okay. When we do this, when we conduct PFA, again, it goes back to that sense of safety. Okay. As soon as we establish that sense of safety, it's much easier to calm down. Okay. It also means assessing needs and concerns, what the person needs at the moment. Okay, protecting people from further harm. Again, it's going back to safety, right? Are we in a is a physical space right now? Like, are we safe, or do we need to move or evacuate somewhere else? Right, providing emotional support, helping to provide immediate basic needs. You'll tend to see this. You'll tend to see this PFA happening, okay, in evacuation centers. Okay, so try to think of that setting. Okay, so again, it's about supporting and listening, but we don't pressure these people to talk. Okay, only when they want to. Okay, and lastly, it's helping obtain information that is needed. Like, who can I contact if I need more food or more medical assistance. Okay, it's that kind of thing. Okay, the nice thing about PFA is that anyone can do it. You just need the right training. Okay? You don't have to be a professional to do it. You don't have to be a mental health person. You just need the right training, and then you will be able to conduct this. Okay, so real quick, PFA is not, again, something only professionals do. Okay, PFA is not professional counseling or therapy. Okay, that's too complex. Okay, PFA is not encouraging a detailed discussion of the event. You don't have to go through each point of what happened, like during the crisis or during a disaster. Okay, PFA is not analyzing what happened. Okay, and again, it is not pressuring other people to share their feelings and reactions, only if they want to. Okay, so it's really having that presence and empathy and just being there for the person, not looking at them as if they're kawawa and that they're helpless, but really just being human while they're going through that suffering. Okay. Okay. So that's the kind of support BFA can provide. All right. So I hope that's somehow making sense. Okay. So maybe it was something you experienced before. Okay. So now I have a question for you guys. Okay, so in the past 2.5 years, you may share this in the comment section. How have you been helped or supported during the pandemic? What was helpful? What really helped for you? Yeah, and if you would also like to share this, the second question, in turn, how have you supported others during the pandemic? Yeah, were you the ones who facilitated all the kamustahans, the video calls, the group chats? Were you the one checking in with others, right? Keeping in touch with family? Sending sending gifts, right? Online shopping, right? So yeah, just take a moment to think about it. And if you would like to share, please feel free and see how the others have been supporting others as well and how they've been supported. Something fun to know. Okay. And one last thing before I finish. Okay. Yes, your own well being is your responsibility. Okay. Simply because you deserve it. Okay. And that's how important you guys are. Okay. So let's go through this list. Okay. So definitely take care of your physical self. Eat well, get enough sleep, and get some movement in your system. Okay. And if you can, do something fun or meaningful, something you genuinely like for yourself. Okay. Whatever that may be. Okay. Speak up and reach out to others. Maybe you have people in mind who have been quiet in the GC or quiet in social media. It's okay to just reach out, check in, hey, how are you doing? Kamusta ka na? Kind of thing. Yeah. Minimize substance use. Okay. We might think that it's helping, right? Especially coffee, right? We might think it's really helpful, but it might not always be okay for us. So just minimize relying on that. Okay. Another thing I find helpful, okay, is about being honest. Okay. Be realistic about what you can and cannot control in your life and in your current circumstance. Knowing or being able to identify what you can control gives a sense of agency, right? Means that you can do something about it. And knowing what you cannot control, well, then, can be hard, but we can then start the process of letting go and just letting it be. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, what are some examples of something you cannot control? We cannot control the behaviors of others, right? So, if they want to go out without a mask, or if they want to uh, go out and do things, that's up to them. We can feel really upset about it, but again, we can't always control other people, right? What we can control is how we protect ourselves, right? How do we stay clean and hygienic and healthy, right? What are the steps you can do to protect yourself and keep yourself safe, right? Simple as that. Okay. What else? Being able to identify your own signs of stress. Okay, just being able to acknowledge, like, wow, I think my heart is palpitating right now. I think I need to take a step back from my work, sort of breathe. Yeah. Pause. Maybe I need to drink water, right? 'Cause maybe that is what stress looks like for you. For others, maybe stress comes as, you know, stomach pain, right? It helps to keep track. It helps to monitor, what your body is telling you. Okay? Because if it says something, if you feel something, we have to listen. Okay? All right. Next, make time for relaxing activities. Again, uh, whatever it is that you're okay with, that makes you feel safe and good, go ahead and do that. It's okay to relax. You don't feel guilty about not being productive. It's okay to relax, right? Practice gratitude, right? Identify the things that you're thankful for right now. Okay, maybe that's something you can put in the comment section as well. Something that you're thankful for, real quick. At least one thing. Okay, then this is something you can practice before you sleep, right? Or these can be your first thoughts as soon as you wake up. Okay. Um, Second to the last is, yes, please be kind and gentle with yourself. Okay. we need you. We need you. You're important. Okay. You certainly matter. Right? And it's okay to be kind and gentle. We can give ourselves permission to be kind and gentle with ourselves. Okay. Take note of how you talk to yourselves up in here. Okay. If it's getting a little bit harsh, we can kind of pause and say, okay, maybe I need more patience, more kindness with the self. Okay. And lastly, if we really feel that we are not functional or functioning as well as we should, it's okay to seek professional support when you need it. Okay. It's okay to get that um, checkup. Okay. Because again, your well being is important. Okay. And if we want our students to thrive, and if we want our students to manage, to adapt, and be okay with the changes that are about to come in the next few months, they will need us. They're going to need us to also be okay. Right? So, again, it's setting that example. Okay. It's setting that example of being balanced, okay, calm and connected so that our students in turn can also model that. Okay. I hope that makes sense. All right. So, there you go. Here's a list of the resources that I've looked at for this presentation. Okay, this will also be available in the handouts. There's so many resources out there, and it's for free. Okay, okay. So thank you very much for your time. I hope it makes sense. I hope there are some things that resonated with you, and uh, I hope we are. I hope this is the beginning, then, to make the right changes, to better improve or care for our well-being more, so that in turn, we can be of better service uh, for our students and our colleagues as well. Okay, thank you very much.
Ayan po, no, maraming salamat po, Miss Mariel, no? Ayan, marami tayong natutunan at naintindihan tungkol sa kung ano ba ang well-being at paano nito hinuhubog ang katatagan at sa pamamagitan ng psychosocial support activities, no? So ayan, no, na-mention rin kanina ni Miss Mariel, no, ang kaibahan ng psychological first aid mula sa psychosocial support activities. So yung PFA po na ginagawa natin sa DepEd is one of the activities po na pwede natin gawin for psychosocial support. And of course, no, talaga naman po everything that Ms. Mariel said or discussed made sense, no, lalong-lalo na po na sa panahon ngayon. Anyways po, no, tapos na po tayo, no, sa kung ano po ba ang well-being at ang psychosocial support activities. Ngayon naman po, no, tatalakayin natin ang isa sa mga psychosocial support activities na binanggit kanina, no, ang arts, no. So alam ko po, no, na ang ating mga teachers ay mga creative, no. So may iba't ibang arte taglay, no, or iba't ibang talentong taglay. Kaya naman po, no, sa susunod po nating discussion, i-discuss po, of course, ni Ms. Maria Lolet kung ano ang expressive arts. So ayan po, pakinggan po natin muli si Ms. Mariel. Ms. Mariel?
So now we move on to an overview of the expressive arts, or EXA, EXA. The simplest way of looking at this is that art actually promotes self-expression. All these opportunities for self-expression come in many different forms, much more than the 5 listed in here. So you're going to probably see a list in the other slides. Okay. Now, the best thing about art is that they are all forms of play. All right. And we all know children love to play. And this is definitely a language that comes so naturally for them. And it opens them up to creativity, exploration, and definitely learning. Okay. And we also know that, right? Kids learn better through play. Okay. So with just a little bit of structure and planning, children are able to access all these benefits and much more when we, the teachers, facilitators, or adults, when we create the space where they can engage in art and actually just play. So when we are given the chance to express whatever it is that we're going through, everything else follows. Okay. We develop the skills, we learn to communicate better, we release the energy, and we even get a little bit more confident in ourselves. All right, so I'm going to go back to this later because I'm actually curious right now, and I'd like to know, what is your favorite art form and what benefits do you get from it? Or if you've observed, how have your students benefited from engaging in art or play? Yeah. So I'd like to invite you all to share just a little bit in the comment section, and let's see how similar or different your experiences are from that of others. Okay. All right. So while that's happening, I'd also like to share this quote. Okay. Every child is an artist. The problem is how to remain an artist once he grows up. Ouch. Yes. Okay. Pablo seems, yeah, kind of right. He makes a point there, doesn't he? Yeah. So, what does this quote mean to you? My takeaway is that every child is an artist, okay, regardless of skill level, artistic ability, or developmental stage. With expressive arts, theory and technique, not so important. Even if expressive arts is done in the classroom, it doesn't have to be a contest, and there are definitely no grades. What's important is that we're able to express and create simply because it is human to express ourselves and to create beautiful things. So remember, we all have that creative energy within us, and no one can take that away from us as well, not even growing up. So let's give ourselves permission to express, create, and feed our souls so that we can be the compassionate adults our students need us to be. Okay, so in here, we have a diagram, and I know the text is quite small, but the idea here is that different art forms stimulate and activate different parts of the brain. Okay, now in the context of stress, trauma, living in crisis, when a person is stressed, okay, some parts of the brain actually shut down to gather up all the energy and resources needed for surviving. So some parts of the brain are activated, but it's only done so for survival mode. Okay. And that's a very normal thing. That's a normal stress response. Okay. The challenge there is when we stay in that stressed state for a prolonged period of time. Now that's stressful. Okay. So remember, parts of the brain already offline when we're stressed out, even more so when we're experiencing prolonged stress. And this is where art comes in. Okay. Because then these different art forms are able to tap into the parts of the brain that are difficult to access or that are offline. Okay. It's able to stimulate that. And of course, we need to make sure that we are in a safe environment first. So we establish that safety. Okay. And then we are able to access those other parts of the brain that may have been shut off due to that stress. And remember, art and play that is a different yet natural language. These forms are able to access different parts of the brain that have difficulty being expressed through words. If that makes sense, sometimes we have difficulty wording out our feelings, but when it comes to art, it translates just fine and maybe even better. Okay, so that's the importance, okay, of this diagram. That's the importance, okay, of art and why it's so crucial to have it and to keep it in our lives and to share it with our students as well. Okay, that's where the healing starts. Right, and of course, here's just a quick summary for expressive arts in that it's used for different things. In our case, mainly it's for healing. Healing because we are able to express. We're able to express things that are otherwise difficult to word out or to say. Okay? Definitely, there's learning that takes place. Okay? Again, we are able to develop skills and other concepts. All right. And of course, we do this for fun. Okay. And it's okay to do things for fun because we definitely need that in our lives. So this is basically quick overview of expressive arts and why we can utilize this as we use this as a form of psychosocial support, okay, and even adapt it in the classroom for your students.
Ayan, thank you po ulit, Ms. Mariel, no, sa pagbahagi sa atin ng tungkol sa expressive arts. Actually, no, ayan, napakaganda talaga ng arts, no. Ako, ang tumatak sa akin yung sinabi ni Ms. Mariel kanina, yung diniscuss niya yung na may mga parts ng brain natin na nag-shutdown or nag-offline pag tayo stress. So, napakahalaga talaga, no, na we find ways, no, para malesen or maiwasan natin yung stress. So, best way nga, one of the best way to do it is through arts, through expressive arts. Kasi our expressive arts can heal. It can also help us to learn and of course have some fun. Okay? So ayan po, so far tinalakay na po natin ang konsepto ng resilience o katatagan, psychosocial support at expressive arts. So ngayon po, dumako naman tayo sa pangalawang bahagi, no, ng ating programa. Handog ng ating speaker ang talakayan tungkol sa 5 S's. Ano ba ito? Of psychosocial support. So let us welcome our speaker, Ms. Maria Therese Jose, a counselor and a spiritual director trained in Asian Theological Seminary, kung saan siya ay nagtapos rin ng Masters in Pastoral Counseling. Her expertise has been applied in psychospiritual support, communications, and learning management. So yan po, no? Pwede niyo po puntahan ang page 6 ng inyong handouts para masabayan po natin si Ms. TJ sa kanyang discussion. Good afternoon, Ms. TJ.
Alright, maraming salamat, Mariel. Ngayon, meron tayong overview na, no, ng psychosocial support. Ngayon naman ay dadako tayo sa ating 7 S's of psychosocial support. So we're digging a little bit deeper this time. Okay, so ang 7 S's natin of psychosocial support ay siya ring 7 healing components sa ating expressive arts activities. So ang 7 po na ito ay safety, self-awareness, self-expression, self-compassion, self-regulation, self-esteem or self-confidence, at problem-solving. So ganun po yun. They build on each other. Okay, so explain ko lang po saglit, pahapyawan ko lang po ang ating 7 S's. Again, kung gusto niyo po ng mas malalim pa na understanding, mas malalim na explanation, andyan po yan sa ating psychosocial support activity pack. Pwede po natin bisitahin yun. Alright. So, punta po tayo sa next slide. At tayo ay nagsisimula sa safety. So, ang safety, ito yung pinaka-foundation natin. Kumbaga, I am safe. Ligtas ako. So, yung safety po na ito ay nag-refer not just to physical safety, but also emotional or psychological safety. Ito yung pinaka-pundasyon natin so that our learners are able to reflect and are able to express. Sunod naman po ay ang self-awareness. So kapag nalaman na po nila or na-assure na po sila, pag na-assure na ang ating learners of their safety, saka sila magkakaroon ng ability to be self-aware. Saka nila mas ma-exercise ang ability to look within themselves. Ang self-awareness po ay tumutukoy sa ating kakayanan na magkaroon ng kaalaman kung anong nangyayari sa loob natin. At ito po yung foundation natin so that we can eventually move to self-expression. So kung aware na po ang ating learners kung anong nararamdaman nila, maaari nila itong i-express. Maaring sa magulang, sa kanilang guro na kayo po yun. Kung ano man yun, no, maaari nilang i-express. So sa self-expression po, hindi lamang ito ang verbals, pero pati na rin ang non-verbals. Lalong-lalo na po sa mga mas batang mga learners natin, no? Since medyo limited pa ang verbal ability, kailangan tayo bilang mga guro ay may sensitivity din sa non-verbals ng ating mga learners. I'm sure alam nyo na po yun. Alright, so ayan, self-expression. Sunod naman po ay self-regulation. Ang self-regulation lamang po ay tumutukoy sa ating kakayanan na i-manage ang ating emotions, lalo na kung ito ay intense. So kung napansin po natin na tayo bilang guro ay nakakaramdam ng onting irita, onting init ng ulo na normal naman, ano kaya ang maaari natin gawin para hindi natin ito maipasa sa ating learners, no? Yun yung self-regulation. At kapag pinapractice po natin ito in the midst of our learners, they are also able to learn from us as we practice that. So ito po ay critical sa ating healthy daily functioning. Ang ibig sabihin lang po nun ay kung paano tayo mag-function sa araw-araw. Paano natin pinagdadaanan ang samot-saring hinaharap natin sa buhay. Sunod naman po ay ang problem solving. So ngayon po na na-regulate na natin ang sarili natin o kaya na-regulate na ng mga learners ang kanilang sarili, tayo po o sila ay mas may abilidad para mag-problem solve. Hindi ba't mas nakakapag-isip tayo ng mabuti kapag tayo ay nasa mas kalmado na estado, di ba? So, yung pag-problem solve po in the context of our psychosocial support activities ay maaaring ma-encounter sa simpleng ano kaya yung kulay na gagamitin ko? Green ba? Red ba? Or blue? Paano kung walang color pink? Ano kayang pwede kong gawin? Siguro pwede ako maghalo ng red at white. So yung mga simpleng bagay na yun, kapag nag-ipon-ipon, kapag madalas na naintindihan or na-experience at na-encounter ng learners na sila ay may kakayanan na mag-solve ng problems kahit maliit lang, mas nabibuild yung kanilang confidence. At pupunta naman po tayo sa self-esteem or self-confidence. So kapag habang tayo po ay nakaka-encounter ng experiences kung saan tayo ay nakakapag-problem solve and it goes well, nakaka-build po siya ng confidence, di ba po? Ganun din po sa ating learners. At mas nagkakaroon sila ng assurance sa sarili nila na kung ano yung haharapin, kaya nilang malagpasan yun. Kaya nilang magkaroon ng success even through that. yung arts-based activities po natin, no, nakakatulong sila sa pag-reflect, pag-identify ng mga strengths nila, and that helps build self-confidence. So yun po. Next naman po, last, sa ating 7 S's ay ang self-compassion. I can practice self-compassion for myself. So, ang self-compassion lang po ay ang pagkakaroon ng empathy sa ating sarili. So, I'm sure na-experience nyo na po na may mga events sa ating buhay, maraming mga pangyayari sa ating buhay na hindi nangyayari yung gusto natin, hindi nangyayari yung pinlano natin. At madali, no, na parang i-criticize ang ating sarili. Pero sa self-compassion po, no, we are able to extend empathy to ourselves, to extend understanding and acceptance to ourselves. Kapag po nakikita yon ng ating learners, and we also model empathy to them, sila po ay nagkakaroon or nabibuild yung capacity nila for self-compassion. And that quality po of self-compassion helps them to be more resilient sa iba't ibang hinaharap nila sa buhay. When learners are self-compassionate, they are able to bounce back better from challenges, adversities, and difficult experiences. So ayun po ang ating 7 S's. I hope you are able po, no, to maybe reflect on that in your own time. Kung ano nga po kaya ang sarili kong, ang dating ng 7 S's sa akin. Ano kaya sa sarili ko yung mga tingin kong medyo kailangan ko pa. Maganda po i-practice natin yung self-awareness so that when we encounter or when we're there for our learners, aware po tayo sa ating tendencies and we're fully able to be there for our learners. So yun po ang ating 7 S's. Yan. So maraming salamat po.
Thank you very much, Ms. TJ, no, for that wonderful discussion. No? So yan po, mga ma'ams and sirs, no, huwag po natin kalimutan, no, yung 7 S's na tinuro ni Ms. TJ sa atin. No? Kasi makakatulong po ito para mas maging effective pa ang ating approach, no, sa pagbibigay ng psychosocial support. So po natin kalimutan ang mga ito, ang safety, self-awareness, self-expression, self-regulation, problem-solving, self-confidence, and ang self-compassion. Okay? So yan po, no? Hindi lamang po basta-basta ang pagbibigay ng class activities o palaro ang psychosocial support. Kaya naman po, lagi nating tatandaan ang 7 S's. Ito ay mga pamamaraan natin upang matulungin ang ating mga mag-aaral na maging komportable, no, sa klase, lalo-lalo na pong mag-face-to-face na ang karamihan sa atin. Parang bagong-bago na naman, no, ang makakasama nila sa loob ng silid-aralan. Ayan, so kasabay po nito ang iging pakiramdam ng ating mga mag-aaral sa eskwelahan na ligtas sila rito, mabubuti ang mga guro at kamag-aral, malaya silang makaramdam ng kahit ano, naiintindihan at pinapakinggan ang kanilang mga pangangailangan at laging may handang tumulong o mag-alaga kung kinakailangan. Sana lagi nating alalahanin ito tuwing magbibigay tayo ng psychosocial support activities, tunay na para sa bata. Ngayon naman po, para sa ating mga guro, no, mula sa grade 7 hanggang grade 12, magkakaroon tayo ng mas malinaw na idea kung paano nga po ba ginagawa itong psychosocial support activities at ano nga ba ang itsura ng isang psychosocial support activity. So bigyan natin ng isang warm welcome si Ms. Rainy, Ms. Mariel at Ms. TJ para bigyan tayo ng demonstration and psychosocial support at ipaliwanag ang mismong conduct of psychosocial support in the classroom. So ang bahaging ito po ay matatagpuan sa page 7 hanggang page 10 ng inyong mga handouts at ang kabuuang instructions naman po ng magiging activity natin ay nasa annex sa page 20 hanggang page 21. So maaari niyo po itong check habang nakikinig at nanonood ng discussion ni na Ms. Rainey.
Thank you very much, TJ. For now, we are transitioning to the demonstration part wherein we share with you an actual psychosocial activity that you can do in the classroom. But before that, a few notes lang po and reminders on how to prepare yourself, the space, and even your students for the said activity. So a few considerations po before conducting the psychosocial support activities. Of course, we would always want to take into consideration the age and grade level of our learners, no? Angkop ba sa kanilang edad, angkop ba sa kanilang kakayahan at grade level. Siyempre po, kaugnay na niyan ang kanilang skills and abilities, ang kanila ng alam at kayang gawin mag-isa. Also, we can also take into consideration their interests. Ano nga ba ang kanilang kinahihiligan ngayon? And we might want to angle or focus on themes that are really resonate with them, no? And also related to that is their culture and their background. Of course, we'd always be want to be respectful of their culture, diba? I mean, keep sacred and important whatever they regard as sacred and important, and not be insensitive, no, to their beliefs and traditions. Apart from that is also the availability of materials. So you might find that you have a different set of materials that are available. Let's be resourceful po, teachers, no? So we can work with whatever materials are available, even materials from nature or recycled materials, diba? And it's also a way of us teaching our students to be resourceful as well, no? And the last consideration also that we want to remind you about is the time. So you may want to make variations to certain parts of the psychosocial activity. That's okay. So it all depends po on how much time you're willing to give, to carve out during your school day for this. It also depends on how regular you'd like to commit this. Although kami po, we would really want to encourage you to make this a regular thing. As you will see, it will be very helpful po for yourself and even for your students. All right. So before you jump into the activity itself, of course, lagi pong mahalaga ang paghahanda ng mismong espasyo, no? So we call this the preparing the physical space. So you'll see here an ideal setup of our art supplies table. Hindi naman ibig sabihin na ganito dapat ang setup sa bawat classroom niyo po, mga ma'am at sir. All we're pointing out here is that it's important to keep things in order. If possible, it would also be good to have labels for each of the things, because that will make the activity itself more inviting. Diba? Kahit naman po tayo, bago tayo magsimula, ayaw naman natin na magulo ang ating paligid. So in the same way, as we invite our students to take part in art making and also the expressive arts, we'd want to set up an environment that is really conducive and encouraging of that, no? So it begins with order and cleanliness. So this is just one setup that we're proposing, but you can work around whatever is available and easiest for you. All right, this is the setup naman po of paints that are ideal. Again, if you find na hindi kayang ganito, it's completely okay. So this can be for your individual students. This can be the setup for sharing. But again, what we'd like to emphasize here is the order of things. No? So makikita nyo po, magkakahana yung mga pintura. Meron rin sponge at paper towels. Pwede naman po tayong gumamit ng basahan o mga retaso. Scrap cloth po na available dyan, no? Pampunas ng pintura. at ng paintbrush, tapos yung mga paintbrush magkakasama lang din. Again, order is key, no? Para nga maengganyo ang ating mga students na sumali. Yan. These show naman po the different setup, seating arrangements that you can work around with in your classroom. So hindi naman kailangan laging tables and chairs lamang, no? We can choose to set aside the tables to make space, to make a big open space inside our classroom. You may also choose to do it outside or maybe in your multipurpose hall, sa school gym or auditorium, if you find that a much bigger space would be helpful, no? So these are different variations lang of how you might set up the space. So we invite you teachers po to think about the activities that you have in mind and ask yourselves, what would be the best setup? What setup would be encouraging, no, for our students to be free and express themselves and also really take delight po in the activities that we prepared for them. So these are just two. These are two other setups, no? So again, we're just showing these as ideas, as recommendations, and you can play around with these, no, as you think of the activities that you have in mind already. All right. Apart po from the physical space, yung panlabas na kapaligiran, what's important also is we prepare po the emotional space. First, of ourselves as teachers or as facilitators of these activities. And next po, of our learners or our students, no? And why is this important? Because it allows the participants and even ourselves as teachers for the freedom to explore and assure them of confidentiality and safety. Because you'll see, as you'll see later on, we'll be encouraging sharing, no, in different forms. And that can only happen if your students are comfortable and they are assured that this is a safe space, no, that there'll be no judging, that there's no right or wrong, diba? And all that we're encouraging is what is true, diba? And that's when we get to know them. That's when we get to really determine where they're at, no? But before we can effectively do that, our recommendation is that you always check in on yourself also as teachers. Kasi diba minsan po ibang araw, hindi naman natin minsan napapansin, pero kung ano yung kumbaga bigat, kung meron man bigat, no, o problema na hindi naman sa classroom, pero naidadala natin sa trabaho. At gusto rin naman nating maging totoo, pero hanggat maaari, we would like to share with our students, especially when we come into this space, a sense of calm, a sense of centeredness, no? And we'd also, as teachers, want to be ready to show compassion for them, no? To be there fully, completely and fully, and not to be there po as robots na parang, sige, gawin lang natin tong activity na to, no? Pero mahalagang nandun tayo ng buong-buo, handang makinig at handa rin na, kumbaga, samahan ang mga minamahal nating estudyante sa kanilang paglalakbay. So what are these simple things that help? One is establishing a routine. We'll talk more about that later, no? But it helps if there's a regular flow to your psychosocial support activities. Establish boundaries, no? It's good if there are guidelines at the beginning where we say, this we can do in this space, this definitely we cannot do, diba? We don't want to hurt others. We don't want to disrespect others. So to just be clear about those boundaries also helps establish that sense of safety. To have fun and be playful. So kayo rin po mga guro, no, we invite you also to really just be open to the process, to this process, even as you lead the activities in your classroom. Kasi mararamdaman yan ng mga estudyante natin, no? So we'd also want to show them that we do have the energy and we do have the gameness, diba, to be with them. So it's also best if we observe and are attuned to how our children feel, no? And once we get the hang of these psychosocial support activities, we'll find that some days what we planned for is not exactly what they need, no? So we'd like to get to a point where we can adjust and pivot and kind of really meet them where they're at. If their energy is low, maybe we can kind of adjust the activities a bit to help up the energy. So it's just very important that we are attuned to how our class is generally, no? And we would like to communicate in a way that affirms a creative process, to always be encouraging and be sincere also in saying that you can be true in this space. Ligtas kayo dito at hindi namin kayo huhusgahan. Walang tama o mali. Hindi namin kayo gigradean dito. Ang gusto lang namin muli ay maging totoo at bukas kayo, no? So with that, I think we are ready to already jump into the actual demonstration. Thank you very much.
Hello and good day. As we begin today's session, I would like to ask everyone, how are we all doing? Kamusta na po kayo? When was the last time you really asked yourself, how am I doing today? Right now. So I would like to invite everyone to take this time to check in with ourselves. Now, I'm feeling curious. If you can represent your feelings with some type of weather, okay, what would that look like? What is your weather report as you check in with yourself? Please take the time to do that and feel free to comment with words and or emojis to represent how you're feeling. Okay, and while this is happening, you may also explore the comment section to see how everyone else is doing, just so we have an idea of how the whole group, is feeling at this very moment. Okay, so go ahead, take your time, and thank you for inputting your weather report. All right, now we move on to the guidelines. So before we do the actual main activity, we would like to lay these down just so we know what to expect from ourselves and from each other. Okay. First and foremost, this is a very magic thing. Know that all art is good art. Go ahead, say it out loud without your microphones on. All art is good art. Okay. That basically means whatever you put out in this session, as long as it comes from you, that is all that matters. That is good enough. Okay. Remember, you don't need to be a good artist to make or enjoy art. Okay. Next is that we use whatever materials we have on hand, right? And when you're with your friends as we do this, feel free, go ahead. We encourage you to share your materials with others. Okay. If they want to use that, go ahead, share your blessings. All right. And in the sharing portion, when someone is speaking, we encourage everyone to listen not only with your ears, but also with your hearts. Okay, and this is related to the next line, that throughout the whole session, we treat each other with respect. We want to make sure that this is a safe space for everyone. So as we do the activities, we do this without judgment from ourselves and from others. Okay, so let's move on to the next activity. And this is, yes, our grounding exercise. Okay. Since we've been talking about the weather, we have something related as well. This is called cloud relaxation. As we do this, I'd like to invite you all, okay, to get comfy. Go ahead, wherever you're seated at. Go ahead, shift your weight. See if you need to move a bit forward or scoot back. Okay. If your chair has a backrest, you may lean back, whatever is comfortable for you. Okay. You tilt your head, roll your shoulders, go right ahead. As we do this activity, this will involve some type of breathing. Okay, I would like to remind everyone. We try to breathe, we try to inhale with our nose, exhale through our mouths. And as we inhale, we fill up our bellies, okay, instead of the chest. So you may go ahead, take one hand, put it over your chest, and your other hand over your belly. And as you inhale, notice that your belly should be the one rising and not your chest. Okay. That's called belly breathing. All right. So, shall we begin? Okay. Now let us start with some breaths, and let's do this together, shall we? Now let's inhale. Then exhale. Inhale. Then exhale. Really empty out your lungs as you do this. Okay? And if you're comfortable to do so, you may close your eyes or just lower your gaze. You may look down as we do this. Okay? Let's do a couple more. Inhale. Then exhale. Inhale. Then exhale. As we do this, you may notice the sounds around you or even the thoughts in your mind. Okay, and that is okay. All right, so let's take a few more breaths. Inhale. Then exhale. And whatever sounds and thoughts come to mind, go ahead. Try to let them go. Let them pass by, just like some passing clouds. Yeah? Okay. And let's go back to our breathing. Let's inhale. Then exhale. Okay. Inhale. Then exhale. Okay. It's okay if other thoughts keep coming to mind. And just let them go. Let them pass by, just like passing clouds. Okay. As we take more breaths, you may imagine a gentle, soft, beautiful cloud in your favorite color forming at your feet. As that is happening, okay, you may go ahead and relax your feet. Okay, unfurl your toes. Okay. Wherever there's tension, soles of your feet, by your heels, by your ankles, go ahead, release and soften. Okay, and take note of that soft and relaxed feeling. Let's take a few more breaths together. Inhale. And exhale. Okay. Now, imagine that same cloud rising towards your calves. As this is happening, go ahead, relax your calves. Along with your knees, bring that to your thighs. Wherever you're holding tension, go ahead, relax, soften those muscles. Okay. Take your time as you do this. Okay. There you go. You may bring your attention then to your waist, okay? Your sitting bones. You might notice maybe it's aching in some places. Just go ahead and release and soften. Okay, together, let's inhale. Then exhale. Very good. Now, as you're feeling your lower body in that relaxed state, try to imagine that same cloud, that same beautiful cloud wrapped around your waist, helping with that softening, with that relaxation. Together, let's inhale, then exhale. Very good. If you need to roll, shift your weight, go right ahead and do that. Now we see that cloud rising up further, over to your hands, to your elbows, to your arms. As it goes, as it rises even further, allow yourself, okay, to relax wherever you notice feelings of tension. Okay. Let's take a few breaths. Inhale. Then exhale. Okay. Just allow yourself to soften, okay, and release. Okay. Okay, very good. Okay, and let's bring that cloud upwards even further, okay? As we notice it in our chest and even our shoulder area. Okay, let's have another breath. Inhale, then exhale, and just release. Release and soften. Okay. And allow yourself to feel that. Okay. Feel into that relaxation. Okay. And keep breathing. Go right ahead. Okay, and if you'd like, you may sway as well. Together, let's inhale. Then exhale. Now we're feeling that cloud rising up even more. Okay, touching your chin. Okay. Moving to the tips of your ears. Relaxing your whole face. Okay. All the way to the top of your head. Together, let's take another breath. Inhale. Then exhale. Go ahead and soften your face. Wherever we are holding tension, okay, between your brows, the sides, the temples, maybe your cheeks. Okay, go ahead and just relax. Okay, very good. Now you may notice that you're feeling that relaxation, that softness, okay, from the tips of your toes, okay, from the tips of your fingers all the way to the top of your head. Just breathe into that and feel that relaxation. Okay, and now you can imagine yourself being surrounded, okay, by this beautiful cloud. Okay, you can feel the softness and the gentleness, okay, of it as it embraces you. Okay, really just helps, okay, with that relaxation. Okay. As you continue to breathe, okay, let that cloud fly, okay, and float just around with you in it as well. Okay. So you may notice, okay, that lightness in you. Okay, so go ahead and feel that. Okay, let's take a deep breath. Inhale. Then exhale. Okay, and just allow yourself to float around even more. Okay, just feel it. Go ahead and enjoy it as well. And again, let's inhale together. Then exhale. Okay, and when you are ready, you may see or even feel that cloud, okay, floating softly down, 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 until you come back to where you're seated, back to your immediate space, back to the room. Okay. And let's take a few more breaths together. Inhale, then exhale. Okay, then inhale, then exhale. You may allow yourself to move slowly. Okay, roll your shoulders, wiggle your toes, okay, shift your weight. Okay, slowly open your eyes. Okay, and with one stretch, let's take one more breath. Inhale, then release, exhale.
Thank you very much, Marielle. And now we are on to our main activity, the title of which is Confidence Drawings. The materials we'll be needing are very simple. You can have a clean sheet of paper. It can even be scratch paper with one clean side. And then any coloring materials that you have on hand, can be crayons, oil pastels, coloring pens, pencils. Very simple materials. And then once you're ready with those, we can jump right into our step 1. So we invite you teachers to participate in this so that you experience it for yourselves. And then eventually, hopefully, you find that it is worth sharing with your students, no? Especially those who are in grade 7 to 10. So the first step is to just take time to reflect and think about a time when you felt you were your best self. Who were you with, if you were with anyone at all? What is it that you were doing then? Where were you exactly? And maybe you can also call to mind, what was it that you were feeling then that made you say to yourself, this is the best me? So once we're done reflecting on that, we can just take a while. We can now grab hold of our simple materials and draw and color our best self. Isa pong paalala na hindi to paligsahan sa sining, no? So this is not an art competition. We are engaging in the expressive art. So whatever representation of your best self is welcome and accepted. You can use symbols, shapes, whatever colors, all right? So just feel free and show us a representation of your best self through art, and we can give you around 2 to 3 minutes for that. We can even play some background music for you as we hope that you delight in this activity, calling to mind a memory of your best self. All right, once you're done po with your artwork, we can now open the floor for sharing. So if you're in your classroom, you can either choose to do it in small groups where you divide your students into smaller breakout groups, no, and have them each share within those groups to each other. So it's always best po if there is a chance for each participant to hear others and also to be heard themselves. But if you find that in the interest of time, not everyone can share, then maybe another format can be that you call on volunteers or you call on specific students whom you will ask to share with the whole class, no? But for our purpose, since we are in an online Facebook format, what we can do po, if you really want to share, first po, you can write your thoughts down on your journal if you have, or you can also share in our comment section, no? So we invite you to also do that. So what are our specific guide questions? After inviting who would like to share about their drawings, what would you like to say about it? What is the story behind it? No? Maybe you can answer the questions that we had as we were reflecting on our best selves. And then, what did you feel as you were drawing your best self? How was the experience for you going through this entire process? Just those two simple questions. And again, we'll give you a bit of time to think about that. And if you want, you can share it in our comment section. So for now, I'll turn you over back to Marielle for the synthesis of this session.
Thanks, Rainy. We will now have our synthesis to make sense of the activity and to deepen our discussion on our best self. We'll also have to touch on a few things like inner strength and self-care. Okay? All right, so we need to actually go back to your drawing and let's take a moment to ask ourselves, how does it feel to think about my best self? And as you think about that, anong napansin nyo sa katawan ninyo ngayon? Feel free to share this in the comment section. All right, so for some of us, baka gumaan po yung ating dibdib. For others, nawala yung bigat sa balikat. And it could be different. So what else? What else can you notice as you think about and really feel like you are your best self? Okay. All right. And as you think about that and feel it, my next question is that a familiar feeling? So if yes, when did you feel this before? What situation? Okay, what moment? Okay. So if you are able to think about it, go ahead and savor that memory. Really feel into that. Okay. There's a good chance that the positive feelings that you may be experiencing came from a time when you tapped into your own strengths. Maybe when you felt the love and support of friends and family, and maybe when you felt a sense of meaning and purpose for others. Okay. And now let's be real. It's so easy to forget our strengths and capabilities, especially when times are really hard. Okay. So let this drawing activity, let this be a reminder for us all that we really are capable. Okay. Kaya ko to. Kaya ko pala. Right? So another point of discussion, there you go. What are your strengths? What can you identify in your best self? Okay. Feel free again to put this out in the comment section if you haven't the first time around. Ano-ano ang mga bagay na ipinagmamalaki ko? Okay. So if you're not going to put this in the comment section, you may write this down, take note, make a list of all this, because all these things, all these strengths, the things that make us who we are, they actually did not come easy. Okay. We went through so much hardship for these strengths to emerge. So let's acknowledge that. Okay. So right now, I'd like to invite everyone to pat yourselves on the shoulder. Go ahead and do that if you haven't. Okay. Or give a butterfly hug. It may be a one-hand thing or make it a two-hand thing. Okay. And let's go ahead. Maybe we can tell this to ourselves as well. Okay. At the time of those struggles, natakot ako, nahirapan ako, pakiramdam, nag-iisa na lang ako, pero nakayanan ko naman. Nakayanan ko pala. Okay. How was that? How did it feel to hear or to tell yourself that kind of message? Okay, it's actually an example of an affirmation, and it really just means that we need to be kind to ourselves, because we can always aspire, right? We can always aspire to be our best selves, but we're not always going to feel like our best self. And again, especially when we are overwhelmed, stressed out, or filled with so much expectations. Okay. So we can ask ourselves right now, am I taking care of my own needs? Or have I been neglecting myself lately? Okay. What's within my control right now? Okay. It can even be as simple as, what can I do right now to make myself feel a little bit better? Okay. Do I need to stretch? Go ahead and do that if you need to. Do I need to stand up? Go right ahead. Do I need to drink? Okay. Do I need to close my eyes? Okay. Or do I need to take a breath? Which we can do right now. Okay, so together, let's inhale. Then exhale. Okay. These may be little things, but every time we do the check-ins with ourselves, every time we meet our needs, kumakain, pag gutom, nagpapahinga kung pagod, acknowledging how we feel instead of stuffing it away and not admitting, right? When we are able to set boundaries, okay, when we are able to say no, right? Or prioritize what is important. Every time we do this, we are actually sending a message, okay, to our brains that what? Mahalaga ang aking mga pangangailangan. Okay, very important message. You know, there are some situations that make us feel or think otherwise, but we always need to go back to that. My needs are important. Okay. So how does it all connect, right, with our best self and inner strength, right? It's, to be honest, it's actually a personal, lifelong journey. Okay. It's a practice. It's a process. Okay. And what I just laid out here, these are just some of the things we can do for ourselves as we strive or as we keep striving to be the best that we can. Okay, so again, number one, you know, we go back to our strengths, go back to what we've always had, go back to the things that make us unique and special. Okay, value that. Okay, don't hide that away. Okay, acknowledge how far you've come. Okay, all the things you've surpassed so far. Acknowledge that you really worked hard for these things. Okay, again, be kind to yourself. We all deserve self-kindness. Okay. And once again, value and meet your needs. Okay, this is like fuel for us to just keep going. Okay, so again, just a few things we can do as we keep in mind, right, the best version of ourselves and as we work hard towards that. So thank you so much for your time and participation. We'll now go back for the final activity. Thank you.
So to close our demonstration and our psychosocial support activity for today, this is a very simple activity that we can invite our participants to do. And we invite you also, teachers, to do with us, no? So with everything that's been shared and everything that we've learned about ourselves, even from the synthesis, from the circle of sharing, and also the art making, think about what is it that you want to leave behind already, no? The action here is pa ganon, pero pwede rin pa ganon. So what is it that you'd want to leave behind? Complete the sentence, I leave behind blank. And what is it that you'd want to take with you? So complete the sentence, I take with me. If you're in your classroom with your students, you can have each one of them stand up and just complete these sentences. Iniiwan ko ang blank at nais kong dalhin ang blank. But for now, for our purpose, we can just type it down in the comment section. I leave behind blank and I take with me blank.
Maraming salamat po, Ms. Mariel, Ms. Rainey, and Ms. TJ, no, para sa demonstration ng ating psychosocial support activity, no. So ayan, maraming salamat din po sa ating mga ma'ams and sirs, no, sa ating mga dear teachers na talaga naman po nag-participate sa ating demonstration. So nababasa po namin ang inyong mga comments, no, sa ating Facebook page. Ayan po, mga ma'ams and sirs. Ayan, sana po, no, ang demonstration ay nakapagbigay ng guide sa inyo kung paano nyo maaaring gawin ang inyong psychosocial support session sa pagbabalik eskwela natin sa Agosto 22. Okay, so ayan po, ayan, dahil alam na po natin, no, ang mga gagawin natin sa pagbubukas ng klase. Ayan, at syempre dahil iba-iba naman po ang ating mga mag-aaral at meron din tayo bilang mga providers or mga guro ng kanya-kanyang kakayahan or kakalakasan at paraan sa pagbibigay ng suporta, magbibigay naman po ng gabay si Miss Rainy sa kung paano nga ba pwedeng makatulong ang tinatawag nating smart play table at tatapusin ang talakayan sa pag-uusap tungkol sa self-care or caring for carers. Kasi tayo po bilang mga providers rin ay kailangan syempre mabigyan din po ng pag-aalaga. So si Ms. Rainy po ang Senior Expressive Arts Facilitator ng Magis Creative Spaces at ang founding member of AHA Books na kung saan po siya ay nakapagsulat na ng marami-rami na rin pong resilience-focused books for school-age children. Bigyan po natin ng virtual warm welcome si Ms. Rainy at tayo nang makinig sa huling bahagi ng ating diskusyon sa psychosocial support provision. Ang nilalaman po ng diskusyon na ito ay mahahanap sa page 11 hanggang 18 ng ating handouts.
Ayan, hinga-hinga po muna tayo sa ngayon. At that was a lot to take in, no? But we proceed with this part where we share with you what we call our smart play table. SMART stands for sensory, mindful, and art-based play. And this was developed by the founder of Magis Creative Spaces, Dr. Gina Alfonso. All right. And why do we share this with you? No, this can be as a guide or your reference to designing your own psychosocial support activities that are expressive arts and play-based. No, and it's whether you do it as an independent session like we experienced earlier, or as integrated into your subjects, into the different subjects you teach. Pwedeng-pwede rin. Actually, teachers, you'll find po that most of these activities, we're sure po, you already are doing, no? But we're just reviewing it now so that we also remind ourselves of how it positively affects our brain and the rest of our development. It affects us as adults and also affects our learners, the children whom we teach and care for, no? And you'll see that the table is divided into the healing parts and the learning part. So these activities, visual art, writing, dance, movement, drama, storytelling, music, and others, will be showing in the following parts how these affect and contribute to healing and learning. Very exciting po, di ba? So as we go through all of this, I invite you po to think about how you may already apply or already be applying these into the subjects that you teach or into the practices that you have already in your classroom. I won't be reading through the text in each of the slides. You can go through it on your own. No, I'll just be highlighting and making mention of the points to emphasize for each. All right. So our first art form is visual art. Ayan. So under visual art, diba, there are many things like drawing, as simple as drawing, coloring, painting, using mixed materials. No? So these are just some forms of it, some examples of it. And ito na nga po yung sinasabi natin, no? How the creation of visual art helps in healing and in learning. But maybe what's important to note here is that it externalizes what can be difficult to express, no? If expression usually is via words, verbally or written, the creation of visual art helps in giving our learners another means to express themselves, no? So whether it's their feelings or concepts that they learned, visual art can be a way to kind of let that out. Diba? Okay. The next form of art is writing. This could be in the form of journaling, ano pa, poetry, any form of composition, no? Whether it's fictional or non-fiction, di ba? And what is it? How does it help? For sure, especially the language teachers among us, no? There are many writing exercises, but it's good to note that it also helps in the healing part, no? Sa pagpapahilom sa mga tao, those who engage in it, no? So it's growing in language and communication skills. And again, it's a beautiful way of self-expression. The next naman po is dance and movement. And this is very fun, no? Usong-uso rin siguro ngayon sa mga estudyante nating mahihilig mag-TikTok at paro-paro, G. Pero hindi lang yan kasiyahan, no? Makikita po natin na meron din yan talagang benepisyo for the brain and for the rest of our development. So, dance could be with music, but it can also be just as simple as stretching and using our body in different ways and standing up from our seats, no? And assuming different positions. That really helps, no? And we cannot underestimate or downplay just how much it helps us, no? So again, these are the things and how it helps in the healing and the learning. But what's important to note is that it helps ground the participant, ground the self in the here and now. Paglipad ang ating utak, no? And we feel that many times our body is physically present, but our minds, our spirits are somewhere else. And dancing and movement helps to pull us together and remind us that we are in the here and now, in this time and in this space. And of course, we don't forget that it also helps in the development of fine and gross motor skills, no? Mahalaga rin lalo na sa mga bata, pero kahit sa ating mga matatanda na medyo nangangalawang ng mga kasukasuan. Alright, TikTok pa more. Sunod naman po, drama and storytelling. And I know we also do this, no? Pwede sa civica, no? Sa reenactment of Philippine history. Ano pa, again, sa reading and language, many ways, kahit nga sa science, di ba? Pretend that your cells, how would a cell act, di ba? So it can be in the form of skits, whether there's a script. It's also good to have, to be open to spontaneity, no? Spontaneous lang. And why is this good for healing and learning? It's a beautiful way to build self-expression and self-confidence, di ba? And it's also good if we give our learners the freedom to decide on the plot. So there's a sense of control that we give for them. And then you build their imagination, your creativity. So lahat talaga win-win-win. And if you integrate it into your subject matter, then it's a beautiful way also, a most effective way for them to remember, because I acted it out, because I used my body, my imagination, mas malalim ang tatak at mas naalala. So also a win for you as a teacher. Ano pa po ba? Dami, no? Very exciting. So music, of course, no? The creation of music, whether it's listening to music, that's one, or engaging in making music through singing, through experimenting with sounds, no? Whether it's with actual instruments or with made-up instruments, or materials from just all around, making a beat, tapping your hands, tapping your body parts, no excuse not to make music, no? And it's just really a wonderful thing to engage in. Diba? So these again are the ways that it benefits us in healing and also learning. And it's good to note here, no, that there are certain areas in the brain that respond only to music and provoke certain emotional responses. And I know you po, teachers, listeners, have very personal experiences with this, no? When we're going through something, whether it's something super happy or something not so pleasant, no? Music really helps soothe us, heals us, brings us to a different place. And there's just a magic and power to it that we'd also like to, of course, bring to our classroom, no? And let our students experience more often. Ayan. And then there are other art forms that we may want to explore, also like sculpture, no, pag mold or eskultura, no. So it can be with clay, whether store-bought, it can be homemade clay. If you look it up in the net, no, napakarami pong recipes for that, no. Something parang I think the simplest recipe I saw for homemade clay is just a mix of cornstarch and hair conditioner. And then lalagyan mo lang ng kulay, no, ng food coloring. But sculpture can also be made using other materials like paper, scratch paper, or ano po ba, wire, alambre, no. So iba-iba. But what is it that we want to kind of build here, no? It's the shaping and reshaping. And with that po, we communicate that, you know, you're able to transform things. And maybe in this sense, they also are given the conviction that they can do this for other parts of their lives. And that alone, diba? Cheesy as it may sound, but it truly is very an empowering truth, no? That you can shape and reshape and transform things that are in your control, and therefore do it for yourself as well. And what are other activities? Play games. I'm sure po teachers, you do this every so often. But it's not just all about fun, diba? I mean, but it's beautiful if there's always fun. And sa totoo lang, diba? Parang tatatak yan. And they'll look forward. They'll be more engaged. They'll look forward to going to class and learning, right? And it won't feel so much like work. But games is it can be in the form of icebreakers, no? Just to up the energy, maybe at the beginning of the day, to wake up all the senses, right? But it can also be a fun way to review concepts, no? Instead of your usual pen and paper quiz na medyo tense at kinakabahan lahat. Not that that's bad altogether, but you can choose an alternative way to review, no, through games. So it promotes healthy competition and also collaboration, no, cooperation, teamwork. So all those good things that are essential, not just in the classroom, not just to achieve academic goals, but for life. It can be built through these simple things, no. And then there's breathing. This we experienced earlier. It's something very basic, but we'll admit, no, it's something that is so taken for granted and something so basic, no. And in the time of COVID, no, I know I'm not alone po in admitting na talagang just how breath, the gift of your breath, no, is equal to the gift of life and another second and moment of life, no. So if you're able to do this with your class, and I personally have done this as a teacher before, no, a minute of silence and just deep breathing before the class, you'll see how it works wonders po with even the youngest of children, no, just to allow that time of calm. It can even be integrated po in your prayer time if you choose to pray in class. And it helps them center and calm themselves down and relax, no? And to just get ready for the rest of the activities that you have for them. So let's not underestimate that. And then there's positive visualization, which is sort of related to breathing, but it's usually done po with a guided script. So if you aren't familiar with this, there are so many resources on the internet. So you can just type that in, and then you can say meditation script for courage or gratefulness. Meron yan parang iba-ibang themes, no? So there's lots of samples on the net. Some samples even were made specifically for kids. So simpler po ang language. If you find that you have time, it would even be best, and we would highly recommend that you translate it po to your own language, no? Kung saan man kayo sa Pilipinas, para talagang mas dama nila, mas pumasok sila dun sa visualization exercises. Yun, and then you reap the benefits of how it relaxes you and brings you really to a good place, no? To a good place, even if it's just in your imagination, but it does affect how you view life, no? And this is what we want to teach our learners as well. All right, and lastly, there's the building of connection and community. And we know po that this can be done in so many ways, diba? The activities that we mentioned earlier all help to build this, but there are other ways, no? Like individual conversations with your students, right? With each of your students. That's building a sense of connection. Or like group work, or even hopefully ngayon na face-to-face na, sana bumalik na ulit yung mga activities tulad ng sports fest. Kung pwede lang, no? Still of course, taking safety precautions. But these activities are not just fun, really, no? But we think about them, and it does help in building that sense of belonging, that sense of being included. And it is so important for a person not to feel that in family, to feel that in school, and to feel that in your community, even in your classroom, in the little community that your classroom is. It's important to make each student, each member of your classroom feel that, diba? And that's when they recognize that this is a safe space, that I don't have to pretend, and I can be myself. And in recognizing that, that's when they can thrive and really blossom and grow and maximize their potentials, no? So win po ito lahat. That's why we're just so excited and passionate to share these with you. And again, we're saying, no, these are things that we know you already know. It's just a good time to remind ourselves about these, especially now that we come back to the face-to-face, no? Face-to-face setup in school. So again, just a brief overview of all that we discussed as part of the Smart Play table. So I hope po that at this point, you regard these things not as art lang or laro lang, but art in play that is fun, but is also beneficial in so many ways. And in what we saw, it helps specifically in healing, 'di ba? Sa pagpapahilom at sa pagbuo ng katauhan ng bawat isa, no, those who engage in it, and also in learning. So these help in reaching and addressing our academic and learning goals there. All right. And just as a reminder, I know we've been saying this na earlier, but we'd like to emphasize that the psychosocial support activities, we encourage you to do as standalone sessions in the way that we did it earlier during the demonstration, no, where there was a complete flow from beginning, middle to end. 'Di ba? Where we had the greetings, the check-in or kumustahan, the guidelines, the main activity, the sharing, the synthesis, the closing, 'di ba? If you find that you can integrate that regularly, depending on you po, on how regular, that would be so beautiful. That would be the best. But we also encourage you to integrate it into the different subject matters that you are teaching, no? And again, as earlier mentioned, we know that many of these activities you're already doing. But because today we reminded ourselves of the healing and learning aspects of each of these art activities and even play, no? We hope that this encourages you to be more intentional in integrating it into the subjects that you already teach. And lastly, we encourage you also, and I don't think we stressed this enough earlier, no, but we encourage you to personally engage in these activities as well. Allow yourself to play, allow yourself to experience the benefits of art making, no? If you can do it with your students, why not? If you can do it at your own time as part of your self-care, that's also a beautiful, beautiful exercise. All right, we're just going back to this. This is a slide that we shared much earlier, but at this point, and we are towards the last part already of our webinar, we'd like to really encourage you to think of psychosocial support activities, no? To design your own, because we know you are capable of doing so. And then just take these things into consideration. Again, the age and level of your learners. Related to that are their skills and abilities. Ano bang kaya nila, no? Maaaring may iba sa atin, may mga estudyante na merong special needs. So please take into consideration those as well. Diba, we mentioned we can give options or we can give variations. Nothing is set in stone, no? So we can all make adjustments, no? Just for them to be able to engage and reap the benefits also of these activities. Then you can, of course, also consider their interests, no? Build on their interests. And then an important consideration also is their culture and their background, no? So especially maybe for some of the teachers who are attending here, you teach po our Indigenous peoples, brothers and sisters, mga katutubo. So of course, there are cultural nuances that we would like to take note of and respect. Kunyari po, I've heard po dati, no, may ilan po na para sa kanila sagrado ang clay, no? So if we know those things, then we won't work with things that are sacred, no? Or will regard these things with respect. So just important to take note of those, no? And again, please don't feel limited with if you feel that materials you have on hand are kaunti lang, because you can always work with alternatives. You can work with recycled materials. You can work with materials from around nature. So we are not lacking. No? You can work with anything around you, no? And then another consideration is the time you prepare for your activities, and also the time that you actually carry out the activities with your class. Yan, what we have now is a sample template, no, of a blank activity sheet, just to help you get started in designing your own activities. So you may or may not choose to fill out all the fields here. You may choose to work with like another format altogether. So this is just a recommended format po, no, or a sample template that we are suggesting that you might want to use, no. So makita po natin, there's the activity title, for what level, and then the time, the description and objective, what do we want to achieve, with the activity. Tapos yung healing and learning component, we can refer to the SMART table for that. The materials you need, the venue for the activity, as mentioned also earlier, we can explore other venues besides the classroom. If in the classroom, we can change up the setup a bit, diba? Or if outside the classroom, best po always if in nature, around trees, if we're able to do that, or in another venue altogether, where there's much open space. Just a change of environment also helps. And then groupings, the directions for the actual activity, what to do step by step. And then as you process the activity, what could be your discussion questions? What could be your points as you wrap up your discussion? And then what could be your suggestions po for follow-up at home? So this is just a sample template again that you may want to follow as you create your own psychosocial support activities. Ayan, at this point, I'm sure po with confidence na kayo sa paglikha ng sarili nyo, and alam po namin, tiwala po kaming kayang-kaya nyo yan. All right, and just to end our lecture part, thank you for staying with us throughout this time. We leave you with this very simple message, as we enter back into this, parang re-enter into what was normal before the pandemic, which is the face-to-face, we remind ourselves that we are not just there as instructors, that we're all just about achieving academic goals, but we're there as a teacher and as a companion. Kalakbay sa Tagalog, kalakbay, meaning nandyan tayo upang sabayan ang ating mga estudyante, ang mga batang ipinagkatiwala sa atin, sabayan at alalayan sila. At kinikilala rin natin, na hindi madali ang pinagdaanan ng kahit sino. Hindi madali ang pinagdaanan natin, hindi rin madali ang pinagdaanan o pinagdadaanan nila sa pag-transition natin, nitong nakaraang 2 taon na karamihan mula sa bahay ang mga ganap. Ngayon na pabalik na tayo ng face-to-face class, we acknowledge that there will be adjustments. And these adjustments won't happen overnight. And we do these things like design psychosocial support activities, try to integrate them into their subjects, because this is our way of saying, you know what, we're here for you. Whatever you feel, you can be true. This is a safe space. And then we'll ease our way in, We'll take it gently. We'll take it gradually. We'll make baby steps together, And and it's beautiful lang po to be able to encourage our students, no matter how young or old na sila, Pero I know po we are one in wanting to be true and genuine teacher companions to our children. Ayan. And the last note there is that one can't pour from an empty cup. So ang paalalang ito ay hindi natin maaalagaan o mabibigyan ng sapat na aruga at alaga ang ating mga estudyante kung hindi rin natin yun na ibibigay sa ating mga sarili bilang guro. And this is with the recognition that we take on so many other roles, apart from teacher. and we won't have enough time to list and mention all those roles, and talaga namang saludo kami sa inyo, But may this also come as a reminder to care for yourselves po as teachers. As mentioned, we really hope that you find and make the time to engage in the activities that we mentioned earlier for yourselves as well, to reap its benefits to make it as part of your self-care so that when you pour out of yourselves for your students, you aren't pouring from something empty, no? But you are filled and you are fulfilled that way, no? So thank you very much, teachers, for staying with us on this learning journey, and we're just super excited po to hear back from you how it has been, how this has helped you, and how we might grow this some more to just be of genuine help and be better teacher companions to our students. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much po, no, Miss Rainey, for that uh, wonderful discussion, no, on smart play table and caring for carers. Okay po, no, mga ma'ams and sirs. Gusto ko lamang pong underscore po, no, yung sinabi ni Miss Rainey, you know, on being a better companion for our learners, no. Wag po natin kakalimutan ang ating sarili. So let's take care of ourselves so that we'll be able to take care of our learners as well. So ano po, no? Sana po mas naging buo na ngayon sa ating isipan kung ano at paano nga po ba talaga gagawa ng psychosocial support. Marami lang pong kailangang tandaan, pero naniniwala naman po tayo na kayang-kaya po natin ito para sa mga bata. At nandito rin naman po ang aming opisina, ang Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Service, upang magbigay ng suporta sa ating pagpatupad ng mga psychosocial support. Para rin po mas marinig natin kung ano-ano pa ang pang iba't ibang mga katanungan o mga kailangan ng paglilinaw mula sa ating mga guruan, magkakaroon po tayo ng open forum. So kung may mga katanungan po kayo, pwede niyo po itong i-type sa ating comment section para po atin itong mabasa at maipagbigay alam sa ating mga resource persons ngayong hapon ito. So, nanggaling po, no, ang ating mga katanungan mula sa ating mga guro na nakapagpatupad na at sa mga hindi pa nakapagpatupad ng psychosocial support activities sa kanilang mga klase. So yan po, ano, makakasama po natin sa open forum ang ating mga kaibigan mula po sa Magis Creative Spaces, si Ms. Reyna Dolatre at si Ms. Mariel. Magandang hapon po sa inyo.
Magandang hapon po.
Good afternoon.
Ayan po, no? Marami tayong mga messages na nakuha, no, mula sa ating mga teachers, no? Ayan, 66.6 strong teachers, no? Kasama natin mula pa kaninang 140 hanggang ngayon nakatutok sa ating orientation ng psychosocial support activities. Ayan, so may tanong na po tayo dito, Ms. Rainey and Ms. Mariel, no? So ayan, sabi dito ng isang teacher natin, bilang isang guro, paano ko po ihikayat or encourage ang mga parents ng aking mga learners na makilahok sa pagtataguyod ng kalusugang pangkaisipan ng kanilang mga anak? O kasi nga ito ay bagong-bago rin para sa ating mga parents. So kailangan ding na-inform sila kung ano ba ang kahalagahan nito. So sino po ang gustong sumagot sa ating first question?
Sure, I'll take it. Thank you.
Okay, to Ms. Mariel.
Thanks. That really is a great question. It's the parents, right, asking what
It's a teacher.
I'm sorry.
A teacher.
Yes, it's a teacher asking. All right. So what you can do is to really explain, yes, the benefits of mental health and how it is important for the development of the child, right? We don't just aim for academic growth and development. This is part of fostering a well-rounded uniqueness in an individual, right? So you can definitely have the parents involved in wow, I'm sorry, I just lost my train of thought. Basically, okay, let me just backtrack a little bit. When it comes to mental health, emotional well-being, if you are able to foster and take care of that, nurture that in a child, a lot of things will follow from that. Okay. If we are able to allow a child to express how they feel, to acknowledge uh, their emotions, that makes space for learning to happen. That makes space for the child to want to socialize with others, right? And that is what we want for our learners, right? To make friends, to have fun, to really enjoy their school experience. So it's really a win-win, and it will also help out at home. Definitely less. What we're hoping is that there will be less resistance, less conflicts at home. So yes, family will benefit from that. And part of it is also encouraging the parents to practice these things at home as well. Practicing acknowledging emotions, uh, playing with the child or the learner, getting involved, getting interested in what's going on with their lives. That also allows for safety at home as well. So yes, we want to uh, practice that at home, have a partnership with the parents, partner also with the guidance counselors, really make it a team to make sure that the learners are supported in school and outside of it as well. Wow, I hope that made sense. Ms. Rainey, you may add, please, as well. Yes. Thank you.
Klaro naman, Mariel. Klaro naman. Klarong-klaro. Thank you. I would have said the same thing. Thank you.
Yes, Miss Mariel, Miss Rainey, no? So parang nakuha ko nga sa sinabi ni Miss Mariel kanina, no? Na it really takes a village to raise a child. So hindi lamang kasi po effort ito, no, ng mga teachers natin, ng eskwelahan, kundi pati na rin, no, ng mga parents. So dapat talaga mag-join forces, no? Ang mga teachers, ang school, ang teachers, and of course, ang parents, no? To really ensure, no, na um, magiging holistic talaga, no, yung pagkatuto ng at development din ng ating mga learners. So ayan po, ayan sa ating pong teacher, no, na nagtanong nung katanungan ngayon, sana po ay nasagot ng ating mga resource person ng iyong katanungan. So ito po, meron pa po dito. Ayan, ano po ang maaaring gawin naming mga guro para sa mga mag-aaral namin na parang hindi po kumikibo o pumapansin sa aming mga activities. Ayan, lalo na po at pagbukas pa lang ang klase. Ano po ang mapapayo nyo, Miss Rainey at Miss Maria?
Sige. Salamat po sa tanong na yun, Ma'am Joan. Salamat din sa grupong nag-bring up nun, no. Alam naman natin na hindi nga parang ideal man na lahat ay participative at game at cooperative. Hindi talaga ito ang lagi, no? This is not always the case. Para po specifically for the psychosocial support activities that we do, no, wag natin silang pilitin. Kasi bahagi na rin ito ng pag-model natin, no? Yung respecting where they're at. Hindi naman sana rin araw-araw ganun, no? So parang bahagi na rin to ng pagtanggap na minsan talaga may ibang araw na iba-iba ang energy ng mga bata, no? So kung meron tayong isa o dalawa na ganun, sige, galangin natin na ganun sila for one day. maaari pa nga natin silang sabihan na kung meron kayong nais ibahagi, hindi man sa buong klase, nandito lang din si teacher para pakinggan kayo, no? So I understand po our group for this afternoon ay yung older ones na, no? So grades 7 to 10. So maaari ngang hindi sila masyadong game sa mga mas physical. So kung makita nila sa guro na okay, ginagalang ni ma'am at sir kung nasan ako ngayon, it could be a good thing, no? And to be genuine in us saying that, hindi lang dahil bahagi siya ng trabaho or this is the script that we were taught, but to be really authentic and really show genuine care, no? Kasi ito namang mga activities na sinasuggest natin na gawin ay para nga mas mapabuti or mas mapalakas sila, no? So kung pipilitin natin sila, parang medyo counterproductive rin. Yun. So paggalang lang kung nasan sila, tapos siguro patuloy na paghikayat sa mga susunod na araw, no? Siguro to hear them out rin. Bakit? Kung nais nilang magbahagi, no? Baka meron talaga silang dinaramdam, either may nangyayari sa bahay or may physical na dinaramdam. Parang we can't make assumptions, no? So, yung mabigyan lang sila ng panahon na masabi, honestly, kung nasan sila is already a good thing, na mapakinggan sila ng trusted adult companion as yourselves, mga ma'am at sir, is also a good thing. And we're just there, no, to continue to encourage them. Kung ang maaari ring dahilan ay nahihirapan sila sa activity, pwede rin kasing yun, no? Tapos kung masabi nila na, tansya ko po, ma'am, sir, hindi ko to kaya. So pwede nating bigyan ng iba namang options, no, ng onting variation yung activity. Basta mapakita sa kanila na may kapasidad kang lumikha at gumawa, no, and may sarili kang kalakasan. Hindi man sa naiisip mo or hindi man in the way that you would like to participate as others do. Pero yun. So tayo talaga, we strive to be a gentle and encouraging presence who never forces. So I hope that answered for that question. Thank you.
Ayan, thank you po, Ms. Rainey. No? Actually, when nung pinapakinggan ko po kita, no, naisip ko agad yung 7 S's, no? So, yung first S doon. Ayan, so mga moms and sirs, pwede po natin. Lagi po natin i-ensure, no, na yung safety. Yeah, let us make our learners feel that they are safe. Para po mahikayat talaga silang sumali sa mga activities na gagawin nyo in the future. So, yun po. Ayan. Hello po sa mga teachers natin, no, na patuloy pa rin sumusubaybay sa atin ngayong hapong ito. Nababasa po namin ngayon yung mga mensahe. Ayan. More questions po. Ano? Ayan. Mula po sa ating mga teachers. Basahin ko lamang po dito. No? Ayan, ito po sabi po ng isang teacher natin. Thank you for the activities. Bakit po ba mahalagang gawin ang psychosocial support sa pagbabalik eskwela? At paano po ba ito nakakatulong sa pag-aaral ng isang bata?
I'll take that. Thank you.
Go po, Ms. Maria.
Yeah, so especially in the context of going back to school after 2 years of the pandemic, it will take a lot of adjusting and readjusting. Okay. When it comes to change, it can be really difficult and overwhelming for a teen or a child, right? Even adults, right? We're pretty stubborn about this. So what more, right? What more with our learners? So by integrating more psychosocial support activities in the class, we are creating space for our learners. by creating this space, again, it really goes back to safety. Safety is so important, right? This is normal. This is part of human survival. We are made to look for safety, and even more so in children. So when we willingly create that safe space, and if the teachers themselves become a safe person, meaning if the teacher is able to stay connected with the self, if the teacher is able to stay calm, even in the midst of overwhelm, our learners will pick that up and they will quickly identify, wow, teacher is pretty safe, because I know emotions are scary, but if teacher can handle this, I can be okay here. As soon as our brains identify that this is a safe space, what does the brain do? It relaxes. When we relax, when we know that we are safe, the survival brain in us turns off. When the survival brain turns off, the thinking brain turns on. We are better able to learn. We are better able to make friends. We are better able to regulate emotions. Sorry. Okay. So how do I explain this? So this is really challenging. So that's why teachers so much respect and gratitude for all of you, because really when you go into the classroom, it's almost like a performance. Children's eyes are on you. So we really have to take care of how we talk to ourselves, the teachers. We have to be careful, watch the words with how we talk to ourselves. If we come into the classroom, bringing in all the stress from the outside, stress from home, stress from work, maybe paperwork, whether we like it or not, that will show up in the classroom, and it's fault. Okay, that is a very normal thing. It is a brain thing that happens. Okay, so all right, when we come into the classroom with a stressed brain, this is what the nervous system looks like. Okay, it's up and down, it's all over the place, right? The thing with nervous systems, they pick things up. So if we go like this in the classroom, everyone else will pick that up. The students might pick that up and it will show up in different behaviors. This is where the distraction comes in. This is where the acting out may come in. Maybe for the other students, they will shut down. If we come into the classroom and we are exhausted, our students may feel that exhaustion as well, and then they will just not react anymore. It's happened to me before. Absolutely normal. So again, it's not your fault. What we can do with the psychosocial activities and self-regulations, we are now equipped and we can practice this. So if the teacher comes in the classroom feeling stressed out already, we can slow down, take a moment, like, hey class, let's do some breathing. Let's do some breathing together. Keyword is together. If you are able to breathe with your students, what happens to our nervous system? It slows down. When we are able to do that, everyone else in the classroom will match that. Okay, this is called co-regulation. I hope this is making sense. Co-regulation. Okay, we are helping each other. This is we are social creatures. We look to others for support. Your students will definitely look for to they will need that support from you. So teachers, we need to equip ourselves. If we need to pause to take a breath, if we need to pause to stretch, do that right now. Right? Reorient. That's a good way to help snap back, the survival brain to the thinking brain, the social brain. That is where we want our learners to be, back in that learning social brain. I talked a lot. I hope I answered the question. So yes, yes, we need to really take care of our teachers. Take care of yourselves, please. That is how important you are to your learners. So please value your mental health, physical health, emotional health, all of that. Yes. Oh my gosh, one more thing. Would like to leave with a quote. Okay. Children cannot be what they cannot see. All right. So we teachers, you are the model. So if you can model that self-care and kindness, the learners will follow. Thank you for listening to TED Talk. Yes.
Thank you, Miss Mariel. I mean, ako talaga po ay nakinig sa TED Talk nyo. Anyways, no, napakahalaga talaga po na una, of course, magsimula tayo sa ating mga guro. Kaya, thank you very much for underscoring how important it is to take care of our teachers. And kaya po talaga kasama sa discussion natin ngayon sa orientation, yung caring for cares na dinuscuss kanina ni Miss Rain. Ayan, no. Okay, may mga questions po tayo dito, ma'am. Okay, ito po. Eto. Why is it important for us to know the difference between the healing objectives and the learning objectives? Miss Rain.
Wow, thank you po ulit sa tanong na 'yon. Many times po, pag ginagawa natin 'to hindi na talaga klaro yung pagtukoy. I think it's a bit different as to when we're trying to achieve like more academic goals that are more easily measurable and quantifiable. Pero maganda lang din makita on paper and maunawaan natin as teachers who will do this for ourselves, and also as teachers who will, we hope will later on facilitate this in the classroom, na makita na ito po yung na-address ng ganitong klaseng art form or ng ganitong klaseng activity. So yun, I mean, Mariel is between the two of us, siya talaga yung aral sa siyensya ng psikolohiya. But I think it's always just good to know the science behind it, because there's scientific grounding and basis for why we do what we do. And ako po personally, maybe as a lay person, as an expressive arts practitioner, parang I'm just grateful that creating art and engaging in play is actually backed up as some and sciences that this is something good. So seeing it lang po the objectives as learning and healing, we hope is helpful for you po as you apply it to yourself, as you apply it po to your students. And for sure naman parang growing in both those domains of learning and healing. Healing meaning yung building our well-being, strengthening the resilience of our children, and just helping them overcome, 'di ba? I mean, whether or not, kasi 'di ba minsan pag sinabi yung salitang trauma, mabigat eh, parang hindi naman sila dumaan sa ganun eh. But the fact is, we all do go through difficulties, whatever gravity it is, no? Kasi iba-iba rin yung pagtanggap natin sa mabigat, or sa mga mabibigat na ano, no? So we all need those two things, and really, 'di ba, the hope naman, I would like to speak for everyone. The hope is that we all grow in the healing and learning and eventually thriving, no, yung patuloy na pagpapayabong ng katauhan, no? So those are just there, um as guide, as reference, also as encouragement na what we're presenting makes sense as backed by science. It can also be helpful, um, as reference. Kunyari, napapansin nyo that your students are generally of low energy, no? So you can go through this menu of activities and see, oh, how do you kind of encourage them to be, to up their energy or to be more engaged, di ba? So that can be helpful in that area as well. And what we encourage you to do rin po, no, kasi 'di ba, DRRMS and DepEd has been very generous rin in giving all these resources. So we hope that they're there as references, as starting point, but we also would like to encourage you to come up with your own activities, no. So all these references, and kasulatan, we know it can be a bit overwhelming. We hope can be, can kind of, paano ba, grow you and equip you with what you feel you need to know to eventually, hopefully, develop activities on your own that you can either integrate in your subjects or do as homeroom, or even do in between subjects, and see that and confidently tell yourself, no, and your parents and your students na we're doing this because of this, no. And you don't always have to explain yourself, like the breathing, no. Hindi naman kailangan laging ipaliwanag na humihinga tayo. But for sure, they will see that. For sure, they will feel that. Ako po, case in point, I have a 4-year-old. Pag nagpe-painting kami, and I mean, we paint on cartons or egg cartons, yung mga ganon. Lagi niya sasabihin sa akin, Mama, nakaka-relax. So yung ganon, di ba? Parang just getting them to a place of calm, and yun, I think is a big thing, no? And I'm sure po, there are much more fruits. You will reap the benefits of this. And we just continue to encourage you in all the ways that we can. Thank you.
Thank you po, Ms. Rainey. No? Ayan, napakaganda po ng sagot ni Ms. Rainey, no? Para sa tanong ngayon ng ating teacher. No? So eto po, marami ang ang similar na questions on this. Paano po namin kaya ma-handle ang big emotions na maaaring lumabas or mapakita ng mga mag-aaral namin during the activities? Kasi mga teachers natin, no, baka right. Din sila na ano ang ine-expect na emotions, no, mula sa ating mga learners, para ready din sila on the first week of opening of classes. Ms. Mariel,
yeah, thank you. That's actually a very good question, and I'm also curious what is meant by big emotions. Is it more on the if we talk about stress response, is it more on the flight side where it's avoidance and you withdraw, or is it more on the fight side where it's kicking, screaming, acting out? If it's on the acting out side of it, this is a challenge. Like I said earlier, when it comes to the nervous system, everyone else might pick that up. Okay, so this will certainly be a challenge for you teachers. Try to notice how much of it are you able to handle. You know your capacity, right? We can only if we are to put a meter on it, try to find yourself. If hopefully you are still in this meter, if you go beyond that, that's when things get overwhelming, right? So try to see where you are in the meter. Check in, like, okay, my student is freaking out. How am I taking this? Okay, so you got to check yourself first. Pause, take a breath. If you need to shake or sort of reorient, go and do that. And you can talk to your student. Hopefully this is a one student situation. You can hopefully set them aside and ask them, show me, it looks like you're having a hard time right now. Okay. Can you show me in a different way? Okay. Can you show me in a different way how you are experiencing this? Not through hurting someone, but please show me another way. Okay. If the student needs to stomp their feet, that's one good way of redirecting the big anger emotions. If they need to stomp, for example, give them that option. Okay, you may stomp. If you want, you may join them too so that they can see you doing it. That's co-regulating again. Let's stomp together and let's take some breaths. Okay, on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, let's do that again. Let's stomp maybe 3 times and then let's do the breathing again. What else do we need to do? Okay, do we need to, what is this? Stretch, do we need to run around a bit? Okay. Yeah, this is really challenging, but if you can try to integrate it in a way that is safe for the child to express the emotion. Go ahead and do that. If this also, I'm also saying this might be challenging because this is in a classroom. So you might also have to set the child aside and attend to them in a different space, because maybe the classroom might be overwhelming for them. I think this is also the importance, right, of our guidance counselors, another safe space. So yes, this is going to be challenging for the teachers, because it's very easy to reprimand a student when they act out. It's very easy to reprimand a student when they make distractions and make a lot of noise. But another way to see it is that these behaviors are information. It's information about the inner state and experience of the child. Okay, so if they are, acting out, maybe there is frustration here. Maybe it's something else. You can also ask the learner, like, hey, after you help them with the regulation, then you can ask the questions like, what's, how are you feeling? Where's that coming from? Okay, so yeah, this is, it's really a process. Maybe this is another talk in the future, but it goes to show how much how important the role is of a teacher. You have so many hats to juggle already inside the classroom. So yes, again, it goes back to safety, not just for the one learner, but for the class as well. If you can find a way for them to do that, if you can create a space in the classroom, a corner where they can just sit, be alone, and be in solitude, unbothered by the others, that is another way also. So yes, I hope that makes sense for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mariel. No, Ma'am. Ms. Rainey, do you want to add something? Okay, we're good na. Okay, so ayan, no, napakahalaga po talaga na maging sensitive tayo, maging aware tayo no, sa paligid natin. And sa ating din mga learners, of course, we need to help them process then kung ano yung nararamdaman nila. So ayan po, like what Ms. Marielle mentioned, no? We need to help them regulate their emotions. And of course, ask them kung ano talaga yung nararamdaman nila or ano yung mga naiisip nila para din po matulungan natin sila. And of course, ayan, another, lumabas na naman yung safety. So ayan po, no, kung, lalo na po sa mga advisors natin, no, sa grade 7 to grade 10, no, since may mga designated classrooms pa po tayo for them, maganda nga po talaga na magkaroon tayo, mag-set up tayo ng space sa loob ng classroom kung saan pwede magstay ang ating mga learners na nangangailangan ng time then for themselves. Ayan, thank you po. No? So yan lamang po ang ating mga questions from this afternoon. Ms. Rainey and Ms. Mariel, thank you very, very much po for answering the questions of our teachers. No? Ayan, nasigurado po kami no, na maraming natutunan mula sa inyo ngayong hapon. Ayan, at nababasa po namin ang inyong appreciation no, sa comment section. At of course po, hindi po kompleto ang ating activity kung walang paraan para malaman natin kung kumusta ba, ano po ba ang lagay ng ating activity at nagagawa po ba ito ng maayos para sa ating mga mag-aaral. Of course, no, paano nga ba natin dapat pagbutihin ang ating mga gawain? First, no, makakasama po natin ngayon si Ms. Amina Aiza Bongales, Technical Assistant mula sa Disasters Reduction and Management Service at member po ng MHPSS team upang ipaliwanag sa atin ang psychosocial evaluation bilang parte ng kabuuang pagsasagawa ng psychosocial support sa ating mga mag-aaral. Good afternoon, Nina.
Magandang hapon sa ating lahat at thank you sa pagpapakilala sa atin at sa ating last na topic ngayong hapon, which is psychosocial evaluation, or ito yung ating guide to assessing the psychosocial status of our learners. Siyempre kung natutunan natin kanina kung paano i-conduct yung mga psychosocial support activities, kailangan naman natin maintindihan ngayon kung paano natin malalaman kung nakakatulong ba talaga ito sa mga mag-aaral o kung paano pa natin may improve yung activities natin, at syempre kung paano pa mas matutulungan yung mga learners natin. So, ano ba ang agenda ng ating discussion ng psychosocial evaluation? Syempre una, ano ba yung purpose of assessing the psychosocial status of learners? Pangalawa, ano yung gagamitin natin for assessing, which is the quick psychosocial evaluation forms. Tapos meron din tayong details of the form administration, and new scoring, interpretation, and recommendation. Siyempre, meron tayong mga quick reminders para sa pag-conduct ng psychosocial support activities pati ng evaluation. So, bago tayo tumungo dun sa purpose, i-refresh ko lang. Sabi natin kanina, the psychosocial support improves learners' capacity to overcome the impact of adversity. So, sobrang laking bagay ng psychosocial support na akala natin kumbaga wala lang. Ito lang yung pang-araw-araw na kinilibilo, yung uri ng suporta na meron yung mga bata mula sa external sources of strength sa ating mga guro o mag-aral. Pero ito talaga yung nakakatulong din sa mga bata para kayanin kung ano man yung epekto sa kanila ng mga sakuna o kalamidad. Pero natutunan din natin na learners have varying capacities depending on different factors. So kahit sabihin natin na meron nga tayong capacity to malampasan yung mga adversities, siyempre, iba-iba yung kakayahan ng mga bata, depende sa iba't ibang konteksto nila. isa na rin doon yung iba't ibang level ng psychosocial support or psychosocial status na meron sila. So, kailangan natin maintindihan na kahit sabihin natin psychosocial support greatly contributes doon sa pag-overcome ng mga bata sa impact ng adversities. Nagbabago pa rin yun. Depende sa mga factors na nakaka-apekto doon sa kapasidad yun. Kaya kailangan natin mag-assess. Kasi bakit ba tayo nagbibigay ng psychosocial support? Diba? Para maapunan yung mga pangailangan ng mga bata psychosocially and on their well-being. So para maayos natin mapunan yun, hindi natin pwedeng hulaan lang kung ano yung nangyayari doon sa iba't ibang psychosocial factors na involved, kung paano ba nag-evolve yung kakayahan ng mga bata na malampasan yung iba't ibang impact ng adversities. So we need to assess to properly and appropriately support the well-being and psychosocial needs of learners. Kasi only through proper assessment natin malalaman kumusta yung ginagawa natin, ano pa yung kulang, ano pa yung kailangan ng mga bata. Kaya keep in mind na ito yung main goal natin. Hindi natin goal na mag-assess lang for monitoring. Goal natin na mag-provide ng tamang support. And syempre, may dalawa tayong specific purpose para din sa quick psychosocial evaluation, which is assess how learners are responding to the psychosocial support activities, engage yung overall psychosocial status nila or yung adjustment nila sa school. So syempre, habang gumagawa tayo ng activity, ng psychosocial support activity, kailangan naiintindihan natin kung paano ba nila na-perceive yung ginagawa nating activities at kung kumusta yung adjustment nila sa school in relation sa paggawa ng mga activities. And pangalawa, to help teachers determine which psychosocial skills to focus on or reinforce and strengthen. So dahil nasabi natin kanina na diba, yung mga psychosocial support skills greatly impacts kung paano ba ma-overcome ng mga bata yung adversities. Pero nagdepende yon sa varying factors. Siyempre, kailangan natin tulungan kayong mga teachers na paano ba natin ma-identify kung paano natin mag-focus yung mga capacities na kailangan natin to reinforce at strengthen. So yun yung goal ng ating quick psychosocial evaluation para maintindihan yung mga bata ng mas malalim pa at para tulungan kayo na maintindihan sila. So ito yung mga quick details ng psychosocial evaluation. So meron tayong tatlong forms. May pang kindergarten, may pang grade 1 to 6, and then may pang grade 7 to 12. Iba't iba yung form na to para sa tatlong grade levels. And basically, may ina-assess siyang dalawang areas. Yung psychosocial well-being or yung mga skills na nandun na mismo din sa psychosocial support activity path. Directly related yung items doon sa skills na nasa path. And pangalawa, yung kanilang psychosocial adjustment. So basically, yung adjustment na nila within the school community. At kung gaano na sila komportable at safe yung pakiramdam nila sa loob ng school natin. And then, syempre, yung type of format yung pagsagot is yung una, para sa kindergarten, via teacher observation. And then, self-report rating para sa mga grade 1 to 6 or 7 to 12. Sila na mismo yung magsasagot ng forms. And then, meron lang tayong 15-20 minutes na completion time. Minsan mas maikli pa to, depende rin naman kung gaano nyo siya mapapaliwanag sa mga bata. At meron tayong dalawang activity administration schedule, which is yung pre and post. So, simula nung unang psychosocial support activity at sa huli, yung huling psychosocial support activity, doon nyo i-administer yung ating quick psychosocial evaluation. Ayun. So, bibigyan ko kayo ng very quick preview ng form since ilalabas din naman namin ito next week kasama yung ating psychosocial support activity. Tayo sa kabilang tab. So, ito yung itsura ng ating quick psychosocial evaluation guide. Hindi ko na siya i-detalye. Yung mga parts na lang i-explain natin para pag nasa inyo na siya, mas madali nyo na siya makita. So, syempre, meron tayong introduction kung nasaan yung ating purpose at yung mga mahalagang concepts na kailangan natin maintindihan doon sa mga items. Meron tayong instruction on schedule of administration, may form administration then instruction per grade level or for kindergarten, grades 1 to 6, and then grades 7 to 12. Tapos ito na yung mga specific forms for those specific grade levels. So yung sa kindergarten, ganito lang siya. So teacher ang magsasagot nito. Ilalagay lang yung dalas o puntos kung gaano kadalas nga makikita itong mga behavior na ito doon sa bata. Tapos meron tayong teacher's guide to scoring and interpretation. So per grade level pa rin ito. So kindergarten interpretation and scoring ito. So ito yung concept or yung skill at ito yung item na directly related din sa ating concept. Dito yung learner's rating, interpretation, and recommendations. So basically, kapag mas mataas yung rating ng bata dun sa isang item, ibig sabihin, mas napapractice or mas perceive niya sa kanya yung relevant psychosocial skill na yun. So, kapag mas mababa, doon natin ngayon kailangan bigyan ng pansin at support yung bata. Nag-a-apply ito per bata at sa buong klase. Sa buong klase, kailangan lang natin i-average yung rating ng mga bata kada skill or kada item. So, yung buong self-regulation, for example, na item, i-average mo sa buong klase. Ito natin malalaman kung ano ba talaga yung pinaka mababa nila or mataas na skill. Ano kailangan pa nila ng support. Dito rin naman yung mga instructions. So, meron tayong dalawang parts nga, dalawang areas yung psychosocial well-being, which is items 1 to 7, and then 8 to 12, para sa kindergarten pa na meron tayong psychosocial adjustment. So, ganito na rin yung format para sa ibang grade level. Nag-iiba lang yung type ng pagsagot. Kasi kung mapapansin niyo sa kindergarten, teacher yung nagsagot. Dito naman, ang magsasagot na ay yung mga grades 1 to 6, pero kukulayan na nila sa teacher. Ganun din yung style niya. So, meron din kayong concepts and scoring and interpretation recommendations. At ganun din yung sa grade 11 and 12. So, ito, mas straightforward talaga. Susulat na nila yung check dun sa number kung saan pinaka-reflective ng rating nila sa sarili nila. Ang pagkakaiba ng kada items per grade level is kung gaano siya kalalim or ina-expect natin siya based sa kanilang development stage. So, ayan yung ating psychosocial evaluation. Next, sa ating presentation, tapos ito na yung detalye ng administration na medyo nahapiyawan ko naman na kanina, no? So yung administration schedule, sabi ko nga laging tatandaan before yung conduct ng unang-unang psychosocial support activity. So parang baseline sa data nito. And then may post-evaluation, which is yung after na nung huli nating activity or yung huling araw at huling activity na ginawa niya siya. So meron kayong post-evaluation, parang ito na siya. After nung baseline, ganito na yun. So sa kindergarten, teacher yung magsasagot, and another instruction sa inyo, sa administration, is consider dun sa ating mga observation, yung developmental stage at context ng mga bata. Hindi natin sila kino-compare for academic performance purposes, kino-compare natin sila based dun sa sarili din nila, kung ano yung normal na konteksto nila sa kanilang developmental stage at yung nararanasan nila sa eskwelahan at sa bahay kung alam niyo yung information. So, nakafocus ito din sa experience ng each learner. And then for grades 1 to 6, dito naman, yung mga bata na yung nagsasagot. Pero tutulong yung teachers sa pamamagitan ng pagbabasa ng instructions and nung kada item. So, habang nagsasagot, binabasa ninyo. At nililinaw nyo sa mga bata yung mga specific concepts na medyo malalim. Bawa yung damdamin, samahan ng loob, mga karanasan o pinagdaraanan, i-explain niyo sa mga bata para mas nakukuha nila kung ano yung kanilang exact perception. Para naman sa grade 7 to 12, so sila na talaga yung magko-complete ng form and ang assistance na magbigay lang ng teacher ay clarification doon sa mga items at pagbabasa ng instructions. Ayan. So, ina-expect natin na ganitong age at basically developmental sindihan, yung mga ganitong mga tanong at mas na-realize nila sa sarili nila yung mga ganitong kakayahan nila. And then para sa scoring and interpretation, so i-convert nyo lang yung qualitative response nila to the relevant things. So for example, yung labis na hindi sumasang-ayon, 1 siya. Whereas yung labis na sumasang-ayon, 5 siya. So ganun. And may scoring template naman ito na ito provide para doon nyo na mismo ilalagay yung inyong conversion to quantitative responses. Pagkatapos nun, inonote nyo ngayon per learner, yung rating and yung class average rating for each psychosocial area. And the lower the ratings, the lower the perceived psychosocial skills. Ganun lang siya ka-straightforward. At hindi po kayo magko-compare ng magsagot ng mga bata kumbaga performance-wise. Hindi siya ganun. More like, kino-compare niyo yung sagot nila sa kung ano ba dapat yung kailangan na nagagawa na nila or mas kailangan nila ng tulong. So, for example, mababa yung klase on average, self-regulation, or problem solving. Gagawa kayo ng mga activities from the pack mula doon para doon. Or tututukan niyo yung kakayahan ng bata for self-regulation. So, kung kailangan siya kausapin, kasama na rin yun doon. Hindi siya academic or performance. Ayun. Walang pass or fail. So, yun yung gusto ko rin na matandaan natin lahat. Walang pass or fail dito. Kailangan lahat sila, at the end of the day, masuportahan natin. So, ano din tayo sa recommendations? Madami pa to kung doon lang naman kayo magbabase sa evaluation guide itself. Pero ito mga gusto namin i-highlight from our end. So, unang-una, corroborate notes and observations with information from parents and guardians and understand learners' context and experience. So, itong assessment na ito ay unang step pa lang. Para lang pang sign. Diba? So, nakita mo na ganito. Pero unang step lang to. Kasi kailangan mo ngayong mag-work together dun sa guardian ng mga bata or sa kanilang mga magulang. Kasi, bukod naman sa eskwelahan, nandun naman yung kalahati ng buhay nila sa bahay o kasama yung mga pamilya nila o mga kasama nila sa bahay. So, kailangan naiintindihan natin yun. Para mas naiintindihan natin kung sa ano din yung kailangan nilang psychosocial support. Kaya kailangan din naiintindihan niyo kung ano yung tindaraan nila. So, mahaba siya, malaki siyang assessment. Comprehensive siya sa part na kayo na mismo yung magsisip ng information sa iba pang sources of support ng bata. And sunod, strengthen the identified psychosocial skills to identify specific activities. Yun nga, yung assessment tool at yung psychosocial activity pack, psychosocial support activity pack ay partners. So, ginagawa niyo yung psychosocial support activity pack, ginagamit niyo yung tool para makita kung kumusta kayo sa paggawa ng activities at kumusta yung mga bata sa pag-accept ng mga activities sa pag-adjust sa skill. So, kailangan nyo lang siyang ulitin or sundin yung mga tips din sa back. And third is build consistent routines and establish that class as a safe space for learners. So, dahil isa rin naman sa mga goal talaga ng tool ay matulungan hindi lang sa pag-address ng psychosocial needs ng mga bata, kundi para tulungan silang makapag-adjust back to the school community. Kailangan natin i-establish yung mga paaralan bilang safe space for learners. At hindi naman yun din magagawa kung agad-agad pagpasok ng school, mag-aaral agad tayo, ganyan. Although yun yung main function ng school, hindi lang ganun nag-work yung school. So, maraming mga bagay na nade-develop sa mga bata. Dahil lang pumapasok sila sa school. So, kailangan natin maging conscious doon at i-build yung environment within the school para naman mag-contribute dun sa pagkatao ng mga bata intentionally for their well-being. And lastly, at siguro, ito yung pinakamahalaga para sa amin dahil most of the time, parang, di ba, tayo yung nag-decide kung ano dapat yung nangyayari sa bata. Diba? Pero dapat involved sila kasi needs nila to, psychosocial context nila to, status nila to. So, dapat kasama sila sa pag-identify ng mga measures, solutions, sa mga pinagdadaanan. Kumbaga, kinukumusta mo sila through this evaluation form. So, hindi pwede na kinumusta mo, pero ikaw yung nag-desisyon kung anong mangyayari lang talaga sa kanila. So, kailangan kinakausap natin sila at inaalam natin yung pangangailangan. Yun yung main purpose din ng tool. Basically, bigyan ngayon ng avenue yung mga bata na ito, ako ngayon. So, I need your support on this. Yan yung mga main recommendations, pero may marami pa tayo doon sa evaluation guide. And lastly, reminders na tayo, mabilis lang naman yung MSP and meron naman na tayong guide na susunod kasama ng activity pack. So, ito, siguro reminders na rin po sa buong pagkandak ng psychosocial support. no? So yung una, tungkol sa evaluation form, this is not a performance or academic assessment. Walang pass or fail. Wala tayong goal na pumasa silang lahat. Wala tayong goal na onti lang yung bagsak. Ang goal natin ay supportahan sila. Ginagamit natin yung tool para magbigay ng suporta. Tapos, number 2, look for other means to support your assessment and provide psychosocial support. So, gaya ng sabi ko kanina, so lagi natin tandaan, unang part lang itong tool. Cue lang to sa inyo kung saan magsisimula. Pero hindi ito yung sole na basihan kung ano yung status ng bata. So, maghanap pa kayo ng information, which leads us to the next 2 reminders na listen to your learners attentively and talk to them. Talagang intentionally with the motive of supporting their social needs and their well-being, especially kapag babalik lang nila sa school. Pangalawa, work with the learners' parents and guardians para malaman nyo ngayon kung paano itutuloy yung bahay at yung paaralan bilang parehang safe space ng bata. Diba? At with that, mas mabibuild natin na stronger yung psychosocial support ng ating mga mag-aaral. Ayun nga, inuulit-ulit ko, use this tool as to provide psychosocial support to learners. So, hindi to tool para mag-categorize lang basta ng bata. Hindi. Talagang checklist natin siya. Kasi, to lead us to another reminder din na itong tool na to kasi ang tutulong sa atin para ma-further yung advocacy natin to support yung efforts ng i-prioritize yung mental health at well-being. Alam ko sobrang daming nangyayari, nakakapagod, sobrang bigat, sobrang daming responsibilidad pagdating dito sa ginagawa natin. Pero at the end of the day, hindi naman natin to ginagawa lang all for academic or performance per se, diba? Ginagawa natin to to ensure na yung mga bata magiging okay, magkakaroon ng maging hawang buhay, diba? Na okay yung kanilang mental health. So, hindi yun mangyayari kung puro chika lang tayo, di ba? Sabi nga nila, kung sinasabi lang natin, dapat ganito ganyan. So, dapat may solid tayong tool to back us up. At ito yung isa sa mga tool na gusto natin establish para masabi na, ito, ganito yung mga bata. Kumusta sila ngayon? Ito sila ngayon. At ito yung pangailangan nila. So, further, and syempre, kahit yan mapabigat, lagi-lagi naman para sa bata. At mas worth it naman yun. So, ayun. Para doon yung tool para supportahan ang mga bata. And lastly, administrative reminders. Itong activity guidebook kasama itong evaluation form ay i-release natin next week of August bago yung in-person yung modality natin sa August 2022. So may time kayo para medyo i-absorb siya, aralin siya, and hopefully, hindi lang naman ito dito natatapos. After pa ng mga susunod na pasukan, hanggang masanay na kayong gawin siya at nakapag-establish na din kayo ng sarili ng mga activities na alam nyo nakakatulong sa mga bata. Kahit wala din sa guidebook, malaking bagay yun. Ibig sabihin na gampanan ng tool yung main purpose na, which is to support our learners. Dahil lagi-lagi para sa bata, para sa bayan. So maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat. At ako po muli sa inyo na mula sa DRRMS NHPSS. Magandang hapon po.
Ayun po, maraming salamat, Mina or Miss Mina, for sharing with us ang ating monitoring and evaluation para sa ating gagawing psychosocial support activities sa pagbubukas ng ating klase. Ayun po, naging mahaba ang ating hapon, pero alam ko naman po na naging siksik at liglig at umaapaw yung mga nakuha nating impormasyon tungkol sa psychosocial support activities natin. Okay, so ayan po, magkaroon nga po tayo ng recap lang ng mga discussions ngayong hapong ito, Nagsimula tayo sa discussion sa kung ano nga po ba talaga ang resilience or katatagan in education, kung ano po ang psychosocial support at ang 7 S's. Nagkaroon din po tayo ng demonstration of psychosocial support activities, ang Smart Play Table na may kasama ring caring for carers. Nagkaroon din tayo ng open forum at ang quick psychosocial evaluation guide. Ayan, so deserve po ng ating mga moms and sirs, no, ng pat sa inyong likod. So ayan po, ipat nyo yung sarili nyo, sabihin nyo po, good job. Ayan. Okay po, ano? So ayan, kompleto-kompleto na talaga ang ating mga kailangan. Ayan, para sa ating paghahanda, no, sa pasukan. So ayan po, maraming salamat po sa ating mga kasama sa Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Service at sa ating pong partner ang Public Affairs Service Communications Division at lalong-lalo na po sa ating mga resource persons ngayong hapong ito mula sa Magis Creative Spaces. Talagang tinuruan nila tayo at kinabayan pa sa ating mga tanong. Sana po marami pang guro ang maabot ng ating orientation na ito sa pamamagitan na rin po ng pagtutok nyo ngayong hapong ito. So para naman po sa mga hindi naka-join sa session ngayong hapong ito, pwede nyo po itong i-share, no? Dahil ito pong video na ito ay mananatili dito po sa DepEd Philippines Facebook page. Nagpapasalamat po kami sa lahat ng mga guro at kawani ng paaralang nagbigay ng oras sa atin sa hapong ito. Para po sa pagtatapos, no, ng ating orientation, makakasama po natin ngayon Dr. Ronilda Arco, Director 4 ng Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Service para magbigay ng kanyang huling mensahe. Magandang hapon, Director Ronnie.
Thank you, Jo. At magandang hapon po sa lahat ng ating mga guro at ng ating mga non-teaching staff na nandito ngayon at ngayong hapon ay dumalo dito sa ating gabay, no, para sa pagkandak ng psychosocial support activities para sa ating mga mag-aaral para po sa pagbubukas ng klase, no? 2 linggo na lang at magbubukas na po ang klase. Mga kasamahan sa DepEd, sana po may natutunan kayo ngayong hapon sa ating mga resource persons at salamat sa kanila, ang Magis Creative Spaces na kasama natin, sa kanilang mga itinuro, no, kung paano natin pwedeng ninyong gawin ang mga psychosocial support activities para sa ating mga mag-aaral. Sana po dito sa ginawa ngayong hapon, nakapulot kayo ng aral, paano din pangalagaan ang inyong mga sarili. Dahil po mahalaga, fundamental na bago tayo makapagbigay, no, ng kaginhawaan sa ating mga kasama, kapamilya at sa ating mga estudyante, ay kailangan ay tayo muna. No? So kailangan sabi nga we cannot give what we do not have. Okay? So yung mahalaga yung sarili, okay? And gusto namin iparating sa inyo, narito lamang ang DepEd, no? At sinusuportahan po kayo sa inyong mga gawain. Okay? Sana doon sa awareness natin ng ating mga sarili, makita natin ang sarili nating kalagayan at paano din natin dinadala ang ating mga sarili sa gitna ng ating mga emosyon, no? Na meron tayo sa araw-araw na buhay ay dinaranas din natin. Okay? Maliban doon, sana yung sinabi sa atin, yung mental health at psychosocial support po ay hindi lamang mahalaga na naka-integrate sa curriculum natin, okay? At may mga activities nga tayo, itunuro din sa atin, paggamit ng iba't ibang forma, no? Play and arts, no? Na pwedeng gamitin, no? Pero hindi lamang po yun din ang social support, no? Na pwedeng gawin. Kundi bagkus sa ating natutunan ngayong araw na ito, yung emphasis na ang psychosocial support din ay nasa kabuuan sana, no, ng edukasyon ng bata. yung learning environment na tinatawag natin. No? Kaya sana sa buong ginagawa natin, sa pagpasok pa lang, sa pagdasal, doon sa ating flag ceremony, pwede natin gamitin yung mga breathing exercises, yun po. No? At iba-iba pang naituro na activities sa atin within the day. No? Hindi lamang sa curriculum, pero even with our co-curricular activities. And of course, no, ang nagdadala, no, ng kaginhawaan, no, ay tayo, no, yung mga teachers, kayo po, no. Sabi nga kailangan i-model natin, no, ang well-being, no, ang mental health and well-being, no, sa paaralan. Kaya naman po sana yung sa lahat ng ginagawa ay magkaroon ng consciousness, no, doon sa 7S at doon din sa tatlo, no, na elements ng I have, I can, I am. No? Para itong mga anak natin, ating mga mag-aaral, ay mailabas talaga yung mga yon. No? At sana magamit nyo din po yung 7S, no? Lalong-lalo na po sa inyong mga sarili, para nga po may model natin talaga kung ano nga ba ang well-being. No? Para sa ating para sa basic education, no, sa ating mga mag-aaral. Kaya naman po nagpapasalamat din kami sa inyo. We know that your task, or shall I say, no, more appropriate, your mission, no, yung pagiging guro ay napaka-challenging. Kaya naman, no, alagaan niyo po ang inyong mga sarili, mga ma'am, mga sir. Mahalaga po kayo at sana po ay makapaghatid talaga kayo ng kaginhawaan, ng well-being din sa ating mag-aaral, hindi lamang doon sa first 5 days ng opening of classes, but all throughout the school year. No? Dahil itinuturing po kayo na mga pangalawang magulang ng ating mga mag-aaral. With that, salamat po. Mapayapang araw sa inyong lahat. Happy weekend po sa inyo. I hope that you have a restful weekend. Salamat po.
Maraming salamat po, Director Ronnie, no, sa inyong napakagandang mensahe para sa ating mga guro. No. Talaga namang challenging, no, ang pagbubukas ng klase sa Agosto 22. Pero tayo po, no, ay naniniwala at nagtitiwala sa ating mga guro na kanilang gagawin ang nararapat po para sa kibubuti ng ating mga learners. Ayan po, no, sa mga kasama po natin ngayong hapong ito, magkakaroon po tayo ng evaluation. No? Ang link po ay nasa comment section. So pwede nyo pong tingnan, no, ang chat po or ang comment. Ayan, para po sa link ng evaluation natin. At maaari rin po kayong magtanong sa inyong Division DRRM coordinators tungkol sa link kung hindi nyo man po ito nakuha. Ayan po. Mga ma'ams and sirs, dito po nagtatapos ang ating orientation on the psychosocial support activities for grade 7 and 12. Maraming salamat po sa inyong pagsubaybay. At lagi po nating tatandaan, mga ma'ams and sirs, no, mahalin at alagaan po natin ang ating mga sarili upang makapagbigay rin po tayo ng pagmamahal at pag-aalaga sa iba. At lagi po nating tatandaan na kayang-kaya po natin ito basta't tayo sama-sama. At basta't sama-sama, kayang-kaya. Magandang araw po sa inyong lahat. Happy weekend po.